This is the executive session of the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting of September 10th, 2013. I'll call the executive session to order. The first item on our agenda is the meeting minutes from August 27th, 2013. Doug is not here yet. Commissioner Suter's not here yet. Who is sitting for him? Is it Commissioner Calabrese or Commissioner Parker? Commissioner Okay. So Commissioner Jacobs is off on this, so both Commissioner Parker and Commissioner Calabrese are voting on the minutes.
Same.
Okay.
I'm off.
And Commissioner Wagner's off. So anybody that can vote on the minutes will vote on the minutes.
Okay.
We got 6. Everybody has the minutes. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
Motion to approve the minutes by Commissioner Calabrese, second by Commissioner Parker. Any discussion? Any changes or comments by anybody? No, we're okay. So everything is stated properly in terms of reasons and everything. We're good with that? Okay. Well, then I will say, are we ready to vote? Mm-hmm. All in favor of approving the minutes of August 27th, 2013, signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? No one is opposed. And the minutes are approved unanimously. Next item on the agenda is 909 Kings Highway West, request of the Wilton Bank for a 50% release of a $20,565 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements.
Okay. This was a three-lot subdivision approved in May of 2006. This is on the stretch of Kings Highway West and Southport that runs southerly from the Post Road to the Westport line, runs right behind that twice as nice silent shop there down by the condos. There's a three-lot subdivision. One new lot has been built out with a new home. There's a historic house in the center lot that is still there, and there is one vacant lot. The bank has taken title to this site, and you have an engineering report in your packet that recommends 50% release of the bond.
Okay, we have a report from engineering recommending a 50% release for a bond. Do we have a motion on the request for bond release on 909 Kings Highway West? Motion to approve. Motion to approve by Commissioner Alessi and second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any discussion of this item? No? Okay, are we ready to vote? You know, you're not on now. Are you ready, Commissioner Suter? Or yeah, so Commissioner Suter is back on. Yeah, everybody's on now, so the regular members. Ready to vote on the bond release for 909 Kings Highway West. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No one is opposed, and the request for 50% bond release is approved. Next item on our agenda is 2500 Hillside Road, request of preliminary open space disposition.
Okay, this is a 17.8 acre site, and under our regulations, a 10% open space requirement would require a 1.78 acre piece of open space. What's being proposed here is 10 acres, proposed to be donated or offered to the Audubon Society. So it's substantially larger open space than would be required. Should you find a fee to be the preferred methodology here, the open space fee would be $83,620. So, and again, pursuant to our subdivision regulations, this is a preliminary recommendation. It's not binding on the commission. It just gives the applicant some guidance going forward with your application as to which methodology you are recommending.
Okay. So this is just a review. We're not making a binding vote.
Right, and it should be noted that you recommended this to hearing, so this will be the subject of a future public hearing for the full review of the subdivision. This is just a preliminary, non-binding recommendation on the disposition of the open space.
Maybe we could just discuss this a little before we even have a motion or anything, just to see what we think. Or maybe just ask some questions of staff on this one. So you said we got a fee in lieu of, it's about $83,000 is calculated on the pre-subdivision value of the excess
Correct.
Acreage. Is this
that the former horse kind of farm property? I think I saw it on the multiple listing service for a while. It had one building, and then it had a lot of
I don't think so. There
Is that not
are,
it?
I
Well,
don't
maybe
think.
that's 16.8 acres. so
Yeah,
maybe-
there are no existing structures
Structures
on
on it?
this property. It's immediately,
All right.
it abuts the Merritt Parkway. So just as you cross over Hillside Road, over the parkway, it's immediately on your right. There was an adjacent piece of this property that was subdivided previously to the north, where, if you have the map in front of you, where it says the Laurelbrook Associates LLC. In a chunk of that property from that subdivision was dedicated as open space to Audubon. So that's what they're proposing here as well, in two pieces, a 3.5 acre piece and about a 6.5 acre piece.
So, on this one, again, just to keep in the vein of asking questions, I mean, the rationale is that it abuts an Audubon property,
It does.
and it's 10 acres, and it's been discussed with the Audubon Society, according to the attorney.
Yes, we'll get confirmation on that
No,
by the
listen,
time we get to hearing, but it's our understanding that Audubon has expressed interest in obtaining the property.
Any other comments from the commission? I mean, I understand, what they need to, when they submit their plans, they want to know if they're dedicating open space or if they're just submitting 17 acres and we plan to do a fee in lieu of. I think we've got one coming up next, that's what this is.
Right.
Any other thoughts on this?
I would lean towards Audubon getting it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a preferable
Okay.
position.
So I think there's a general, I don't think we have to take a vote on this, but there's a general kind of sense of the body, that since it seems, again, from a letter, you know, you have to bear it out in public hearing, that it meets the objectives of open space, that we would want to see the application showing the open space. Is that a fair assessment? Do we need to have, what do we need on the record of that, just to?
Well, it wouldn't hurt to have, in the past, you've made motions, and again, it's understood that you're not locked into that. Should, during the hearing process for the subdivision, you change your mind or other information comes to light that would make you change your mind, it certainly doesn't lock you in. You're just making a preliminary finding that that's your recommendation.
It's either this acreage or the 83,000.
Right.
We'd go with it sounds like we'd go with the acreage. instead of the-
Right.
I think
So I would recommend you make a motion for a preliminary recommendation.
All right, I'll make one. Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we make a preliminary recommendation that we would encourage the applicant to move ahead with the plan to offer the acreage as opposed to offering the fee in lieu.
Okay. A motion by Mr. Kennelly, second by Commissioner Wagner. Any discussion this matter? No? All in favor of making that recommendation to the applicant, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's approved as a recommendation. Okay. Next item on our agenda, 600 Hoydens Lane. Review of preliminary open space disposition.
All right, this is a 4.2 acre site proposed for 2 lots. And at 4.2 acres, 4/10 of an acre. And just simply doing the math, they don't have the excess acreage to be able to provide open space, nor would 4/10 of an acre will provide a meaningful chunk. So in this case, they're recommending the fee in lieu, which would amount to an approximate open space fee of $58,220 on the 4.2 acres.
Okay, we can discuss this one as well.
Well, first,
Okay, we can just talk, okay, it's not, it's a referral, so we don't.
Right,
Again,
start
right,
with
this is a
approve here.
non-binding referral.
If you just want to ask the
Subject
staff a
future-
question,
Question,
then
all right,
that's
okay.
fine.
What would happen if we did not go with the fee in lieu?
Get a lot of open space, a small lot of open space, not adjacent to any other open space or having any connectivity with any other type of open space protected area.
Could they even have the acreage to provide the open space?
They do not.
So they couldn't
They have 4.19 acres, so if you take 4/10, the 10% required, it would reduce this property to less than 4 acres.
Which means they would not be able to subdivide.
Correct.
Right.
Any motions? I mean, we're going to hear this application, but,
Right.
Look, I mean, it's pretty obvious that they're going to have to go ahead with the offer of the fee.
Yeah.
So whether we recommend it to them or not, they're going to have to do it, and they're going to come forward. You know, if we recommend they do the acreage, they won't be able to do the subdivision, so they're not going to do that, right? I mean, right? What's the point? I mean, you have to come forward.
I don't think they have a choice, and I don't think we want to vote on this.
Right. Yeah, I don't think we do either.
You're still going to have to review their application.
Right, but I'm saying, their application comes moot if we somehow demand up front that they give us 4/10 of an acre.
I mean, just a step ahead,
Yeah.
couple steps ahead, if you find that the subdivision meets the requirement.
Then
You can get, plus you can get
you get the fee,
before, whatever it is.
$58,000 for recreation. Right, so.
Space, bucket.
Yeah, let's-
What is any other commissioners weigh in on this one? I would tend not to make a motion on this one. I mean, it's kind of I've never had one where they give us something that's really not a choice. If we don't take the fee in lieu of it and make them do open space, they can't even do the subdivision. So I say we just hear the application.
Okay.
And, I mean, there's really no recommendation, since I don't think they have I don't think, usually they do this so they look for guidance how they present it. I don't think there's a different way they can present it, so I don't think a recommendation is needed. Yeah, we need to do it, so no action will be taken on this. Or no. Does that sound okay? We're good? Okay. What's next? Zoning regulation amendment. Application of the Town Planning and Zoning Commission to amend Section 2.7, access and rear lots, and Section 5.2.1, access. Public hearing was held on August 13th, 2013. There is no expiration date because we, the commission, are the applicant. Before we get started, I'll go to staff too. I just want to just give a little background. Since we're ready to discuss it, we have all 7 commissioners here. We held it over last night because Commissioner Wagner and Commissioner Jacobs asked to be present, which is the right to do on an application of the commission. So we held a public hearing on August 13th and closed it the same night. This is just for the benefit of the commission and the public members are here, that we need to discuss this according to our rules in executive session tonight by 7 members. There's a public meeting, but there's no public comment during executive session. It's not a public hearing, it is a public meeting. I just want to note, before we get to the discussion, letters and emails we received, and just read the names of people that submitted them. Normally, we don't accept submissions after the close of a public hearing. In this case, we did, and that's so that we don't, because the applicant has no chance to rebut them. Right. In this case, since we are the applicant, it would be wrong not to keep accepting input from the town of Fairfield. So letters that we got, I'm just going to read the names. I hope I didn't miss any. I got them from all the emails and things we received. Jane Talamini, Ron Nelson, Kenneth Brackfeld, Bill Gerber, Sue Brand, Melissa Emmendorfer, Marilyn Miller, Barbara Agostisi, the Zarilli family, Don Chabukas, Vivian Sorval, Charles and Marion Strauss, Kevin and Jane Connors, George Cother, Jonathan Marjorie Glass, Jeanette and Walt Chiora, Marty Abbott, Samuel Banks, Eric Sundman, who's an RTM member and planned to be speaking for some of his constituents, and Joanna Morris was the last one we received. And with that, I'll go to staff for a recap.
Basically, these amendments are addressing Section 2.7, which is access and rear lots. The proposal is to change the required street frontage for a lot from 20 feet across the board in all residence zones to match that of the lot square width in the zone that it's located, which is going to range from 50 feet in the C zone up to 200 feet in the AAA zone. And similarly, 5.2.1 access, which is really the same thing, requiring an increase in lot frontage from 20 feet to that required the lot square in the zone in which the property is located. So that's really the long and short of it. I don't, unless you've got other questions, I'm confident the commission is pretty familiar with this proposal.
Yeah, just one other thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to stay out of the discussion. I'll just moderate the discussion, but I would hope that all commissioners would weigh in on this at some extent. Maybe whatever you want to say. Hopefully not to let everybody have a chance to speak. but I will let the commissioners speak. I will say that of the letters we received, some were in favor, some were opposed, and some were just not really either. They just wanted more information or hoped that we could have some additional public input. That was the gist of the letters that we received. And again, all the letters we received are listed right there. So that's it. And again, motions are normal motions we can make. You can approve, deny, table, whatever. It's a matter before the commission, so that's what we do. So,
Motion to approve.
motion to approve by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Jacobson. Would you like to get started, Mr. Jacobs, since you did make the motion, or would you like to defer to someone else? Mr. Kennelly, or?
I'll
No,
start.
Okay.
This has been a regulation change that started a long time ago. We've had many meetings on this. We really were starting to hammer it out in February. These were all open meetings. Usually our planning meetings are not well attended because people think they're rather boring. I think this is a regulation change that will address a lot of issues in the town. I am hoping that we have good support on the commission for it. This has been a long time coming, and I think it has been needed.
Pat made the-
Thank you.
the
Commissioner
second.
Kennelly or
Oh,
Commissioner
she's-
Jacobson?
You second, so.
Yeah, hey, whoever wants to go next. You want to go
She should
next, or?
She's
Yeah, okay. Commissioner Jacobson will go next.
I do support this regulation. It is a reasonable regulation. We worked very hard on it to represent all areas of the town, and I also hope that the commission will support it. Thank you.
Commissioner Suter or Kennelly? I don't know.
Oh,
who's
Mr.
first.
Field.
Commissioner Suter, go ahead.
Yes, I've read all the emails that came in from people who were aggrieved because they were not here in August, or they had other distractions. In one case, there was a death in the family. And the overall tone that I got from people who wrote us was that they felt that they did not have adequate notice or an opportunity to be heard. And in the legal world, notice and opportunity to be heard are the foundation of fundamental fairness and due process. And I feel that as a commission, notwithstanding the fact that we held planning meetings, which were noticed, and even that a formal notice did come out of the paper this summer, I think we should reopen the hearing and give the public a complete and fair opportunity to voice all their concerns. We may learn some things we didn't think of before. I, for one, am still a little bit uneasy about the policy and factual basis for these regulations, and I would like to hear more.
Thank you, Mr. Suter. Commissioner Kennelly?
Couple things. Let's stay focused on the motion. I think that the effort made over the last year and a half to 2 years, begun by Chairman Leclerc and supported by you, Mr. Vice Chairman, has been an excellent one, to look at ways that we can do all we can to ensure the health and the health and public safety and the welfare of the town. I know certainly that none of these changes were made lightly. We talk about planning meetings. These were, obviously long sessions where a host of different ideas were hashed out to look at how we could begin to very mildly and very modestly begin to move the way we address subdivision differently than we have for a long time. And the reason is that a lot of what we have in the subdivision regulations date back and really are a product of a very different Fairfield. A Fairfield with much more open land, a Fairfield with much more space for subdivision that created organically new communities, new spaces for neighborhoods to grow up. While those regulations have remained in place, the courts have moved to aggressively limit what zoning and planning and zoning commissions like ours can do. Indeed, perhaps the most well-known case about this dealt with Fairfield, Pansy Road LLC versus the town of Fairfield. And oftentimes I have neighbors when I knock on doors when I'm running for re-election or election, who say to me, how did that cul-de-sac suddenly spring up right next to a school, right by a corner? Everybody in the neighborhood was against it. Well, the planning and zoning commissions in the state of Connecticut have very, very narrow jurisdiction when it comes to subdivision. The right of all of us as individuals to subdivide our properties is very strong. Just the right of first cut, where you can make your first cut, you don't even come before us. And I mentioned that case, Pansy Road LLC versus the town of Fairfield. What is the current law is that that is the Plan and Zoning Commission's jurisdiction is very, very narrow. You could have a school, a hospital, whatever. You imagine the most traffic-laden area with all sorts of sensitivities. But if the parcel in which a subdivision is offered has remained, under the subdivision regulations, has remained a certain kind of zone, it can go in. Off-site traffic, off-site concerns, other issues do not matter. In subdivision regulation, when the commission acts in what's described in the law as its administrative capacity, we literally must look at the sightlines of the subdivision, the traffic safety in the subdivision, the drainage of the subdivision. Whatever's going on outside that new cul-de-sac, what's ever been built, that little 2-acre parcel, that little 4-acre parcel that stood there with a house for 75 years, who knows what's around it now? It doesn't matter. We can't consider it. The only way this commission can in any way alter or look to somehow, perhaps somewhat, better filter this kind of infill subdivision is if we look at our subdivision regulations. And I think everyone in this commission, from what I could see, takes this very seriously. You know, some of the best suggestions we had during those planning sessions came from Mr. Suter, who, you know, reined in much broader. Let's do a moratorium on this. Let's do that. No, something very. What ended up being developed were very narrow and tailored regulations, crafted by staff who have a quarter century of experience with this town. That said, every bit of kind of legal work we do, whatever law gets passed, at the end, someone's ox is going to get gored. In other words, there's going to be an impact, and we have to consider that carefully. But that said, even after if these regulations do pass, the right to look at the possibility of variance or something like that still remains. Is it definite? No. I can't possibly say that it is. But that option remains for the public who are concerned with this. We have yet, in my nearly 7 years on the commission, passed any change that doesn't have some effect. Inevitably, all local regulations are like a Rubik's Cube. Turn one way, you're going to change the other side. Turn one side, you're going to, in a sense, change the other. So I am supportive of this. I do think this is the right way to go. I hope that anyone out there who may have been whipped into a frenzy by some email or a call from a local attorney or something like that will step back for a moment, see that this isn't some attempt to try to rush to judgment, but rather the end of what was a significantly deliberative process over a lengthy period of time, nearly a year and a half, to get to where we are, with regulations written, as I said, by qualified staff who have a long history. So I do hope my fellow commissioners will support this.
Thank you, Mr. Cannelli. Anyone else? I'm looking at Mr. Alessi and Mr. Wagner here. You don't have to speak, but
All right,
I'd like you
I'll go.
to, if possible.
First of all, I'd like to disagree with Commissioner Suter. Last summer, in August, we sat here to a packed house with the same notifications for Homeland Street. And that was going to significantly be a huge zoning change for across the whole town. That could have, we figured, brought in another 15 to 30,000 people into this town. And I don't recall getting a letter afterwards saying, I didn't know about it, can you reopen the hearing? We got a lot of letters from people saying, you know, I can't make it, but this is how I feel about it. But I don't recall anybody voicing their concerns that they didn't know about it and they want to speak. Also, when we had this hearing, you know, you said, Mr. Chairman, that we had it in one night. You specifically asked if there was anybody else who wanted to speak. We didn't leave it open. You know, there was no reason to continue it because everybody had spoken that wanted to speak. I think I mean, you know, Commissioner Kennelly is right. We spend hours, we could spend 3 hours debating 3 words in a sentence at these planning meetings. We go late into the night eating cold pizza discussing this.
I blame you and Wagner for this.
Well,
I am totally out of shape.
I'm hungry.
Yeah,
So it's not something we take lightly. It's something we do take serious, and when we look at it, we take the whole town into perspective. Every district in town, every area in town. Just last week, we had a proposal for another cul-de-sac with 7 houses that we had come before us. You know, it's popping up all over the place. It's putting a burden on the town, it's putting a burden on the schools, it's putting a burden on a lot of things. And what we're trying to do, I believe, by doing this, is it's a step closer to keeping Fairfield a town and stopping it from becoming a city, is what we're trying to do. It's the town of Fairfield. And we would like to keep it that way. We all like to keep it that way. So it's not something we didn't take lightly. It's not something we just discussed on a whim in an hour and said, okay, let's just do this. And as far as notifications, I believe, you know, we went through our normal process. There was an article in the paper, an ad in the paper against us on this application, a half-a-page ad, which I didn't even know about. But I'm going to be in favor for this, and I think it's the right move for this town at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Alessi. Mr. Wagner?
Thanks. I have to say, Commissioner Keneally, I commend you on your statement. You really took the words right out of my mouth in a lot of ways. You did. You know, when we are confronted with these applications for subdivisions, we get some public participation, and generally those are the neighbors that come out and they speak against the development, and they cite various anecdotal evidence and reasons why they believe that the subdivision should not go forward. It's overcrowding, too many houses, what's the drainage impact going to be on my property, increased traffic, this and that. But as Commissioner Keneally pointed out, we act in our administrative capacity when we deal with these applications, and particularly given the concerns of the neighbors expressed with anecdotal evidence, there's really little that we can do about it. I'd like to underscore one point that you made, though, and that is that there still exists the opportunity for variances or special exceptions and other mechanisms for applicants to come to the Commission with applications for subdivisions that otherwise don't comply strictly with our regulations. Now, in that circumstance, we will then be afforded the opportunity to act in a discretionary capacity, which is what I understand the public comment throughout the years of my service on this commission to be calling for. I have heard repeatedly over many years the call from the vast majority of the public that they want us to take action to curtail the increased development of our town and the rampant subdivision of parcels, which, as Commissioner Alessi described, increases the burden on our tax base, our schools, and public services, and so forth. And this is the way that we can do it, and this is what we have proposed. Now, as everyone has noted, this is not something that was undertaken either lightly or with any haste. All of our meetings were properly noticed, the agendas were published, we debated this for hours and hours and hours. And we did grapple over, you know, minutia in the proposal and the text of the proposed regulations. You know, I did see the note from First Selectman Tatro. He communicated that one or two folks had requested that he ask for an additional hearing. Commissioner Tatro is an ex officio member of this board, and at any time he can take this table and he can participate in these debates and he can participate in the public dialogue. And I would just simply note that he chose not to do that. For better or worse, he didn't do that. So I will be in favor of this motion and these regulations tonight, and you know, I really do believe that we are doing a service to the town and acting diligently to you know, to protect and preserve Fairfield for the town that we all know and love. So, thank you.
Thank you. I think Mr. Kennelly has a wee point to make before I get to speak.
Thank you, Speaker, for indulgence. Tiny. This is just, the thing is oh, thanks.
Thanks very much, Jerry. Sorry, Jerry, thank you. Failing Fair TV. The point I was going to make was just, when we talk about a large, it's less than, I want to get this so if later there's letters to the editor about, well, look how the number of subdivisions have declined since 1968 or something. This is important. If you look numerically, obviously, versus 1968 or 1984 versus now, obviously the total number of subdivisions over the history of the town since it exploded as a bedroom community post-World War II is obviously going to decline because there's less open land. But what are we trying to do here? In other words, if you make the argument, well, there was 102 applications for subdivision in 1956 and 50, and now it's 25. It's not necessarily the total number of these applications. It's that as we, as a town, get to the point of build-out, the damage that is done to neighborhoods, nice neighborhoods, where people have lived in a neighborhood. We see it again and again. I've lived here 30 years. I've lived here 20 years. My family has lived in this community for 50 years. And now, what's happened? There's some infill area that there's a decision, maybe someone passes away who loved their home, and their children or whoever decide, hey, we don't live here, boom, 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 we want what we can get out of that. We're going to X that dollar amount out of that property. And that has an impact on the surrounding neighborhood. But, as I mentioned to you about subdivision regulations, we can't consider that. We have to consider only in our administrative capacity, does it work inside the space? So, this is a little bit of a tightening up. And as Commissioner Wagner very eloquently pointed out, this doesn't completely shut down these avenues for people who think that they have an appropriate subdivision that might work in the neighborhood, it fits, and it makes sense. But the kind of subdivision that gets jammed into a neighborhood and devastates a neighborhood by changing its character because it's jammed in now, where most of that neighborhood's built out, this is a very modest attempt to limit that kind of thing. So please, save the letters about how there used to be a zillion subdivisions and now there's not nearly as many. The point isn't how many there are, it's the impact that these remaining subdivisions have on what are established neighborhoods. That's what I hear. Go door to door, talk to people. No one's pleading with me, please jam more houses on my block. No one.
Thank you. I'll just take a turn to speak and then anyone else can continue. Yeah, just in terms of our role here, as you've all well said, I mean, the zones, the uses in the town, they come from the Town Planning and Zoning Commission and changes made by the commission. We've, you know, as far as whether we could do this or not, I mean, we've made recent changes to regs. I mean, just, we changed the height in the A and B and other zones in 2004 from 40 to 32 feet. We changed the story definition and attic definition, not all of what was proposed in 2007. We did pass some residential changes. In 2009, we passed that the square needs to be a buildable part of the lot, which impacted some subdivisions, the language about sight lines. So we do change it, and this is something that we do and that we do have the power to do it, and we don't take it lightly. And even Mr. Bologna, who spoke before the commission today, I'm not saying you don't have the power to do this, because I know you do. He explained to us why he didn't think it was a good thing for us to do, but yeah, there didn't seem to be a dispute about that. We talked about other things at our meetings. I just want to, not everybody's at the meeting. We actually talked about people on our commission didn't like cul-de-sacs. Should we ban that? What's a cul-de-sac? A cul-de-sac is what it is because we define it. We have language on our thing that says it's between 3 to 10 lots. It says how the street is closed. So we define it. If we defined it as it needs to be 4 to 5, then that would be something different. We didn't want to change that. I think it was Mr. Alessi that actually said, you know what? You could talk about them, but the people that live on cul-de-sacs usually like cul-de-sacs.
I'm on one.
He wants, yeah. So it's nothing. We didn't really want to go there. a lot of the subdivisions too, and this, Mr. Kennelly's made this point before, is they're carved out, and changes in technology, specifically to drainages, have allowed land to be carved into lots that were not possible before. And this 20-foot frontage has been around for a while before. We also see a trend to accumulate and subdivide. We can't do much when somebody goes from 3 lots to 7 by acquiring lands around them, or 4 to 9 using cul-de-sacs and what I would consider pie-shaped lots. I know it's tough for the public to hear, but good points. When we're hearing a subdivision, we're acting in administrative capacity. If it doesn't comply with our regulations, we deny it. If it does, we approve it. Here's things we can't consider. These are all really important things, but you know what? Legally, we can't consider them. And we hear them every time, and I don't blame neighbors for bringing up things about character and fit. There's no such legal standard with regard to subdivisions. How far it is from another property. Setbacks define that. Quantitative measures, not look or feel. It's just not that. Availability of municipal services, crowding in schools, and off-site traffic. None of them are issues that we can legally consider. We don't. We consider whether it meets it. So the opportunity here is to define what our regulations are, and that's what we try to do here. I think the 20-foot frontage really enabled a lot of the pie-shaped lots. The one thing I will say, and again, I'm not saying I'm going to vote against this, but when we were passing this, I was thinking more of cul-de-sacs in the R3 zone and down. We don't get that many subdivisions in the AA and AAA zone. I noticed a lot of the input we got from people that were concerned were from those, I don't want to call them higher zones, but they're larger acreage zones. And you know, we haven't had that many subdivisions in those years in those zones. We really, I know all the subdivisions we've had. We seem to be getting quite a few now. I know that we put in private road language to cover those zones too. So it's not strictly having to have access on a public road like you would in the other zones. And it's not like rear lots are prohibited, they're just newly regulated. And as I think you said too, if a current property owner thought he could subdivide, doesn't think they can anymore, there's different avenues available to them. One is to find a new way to do it under our regs. I mean, in some cases, if it turns 7 lots into 5, then so be it. That's what it is. And there is always the opportunity of getting a variance where you're supposed to show a zoning hardship. These are new regs. You know, there's been plenty of zoning hardships shown over the years. You know, an example was, this is really prevalent in our town, then I'll stop talking. It was mostly like the A and B zones developed, a lot of 100 by 100 lots were done. And the regulation at the time was 5,000 square feet. So people were just subdividing into 50 by 100. It became 6,000 square feet in the B zone. Everybody that had a lot like that, and there are tons of them, all of a sudden found themselves unsubdividable. And you know what? A lot of them did go through and get variances. That's one of the most common variances before the ZBA. So it's not like avenues are not before people that may be impacted. Again, we're not even, you know, who's to say that they will be? So I support this. If anybody else has any comments, I'm happy to take them. You have a comment, Mr. Wendt? Are we disputing something I just said?
No, sir. I just would only say that having heard what you've just discussed, you hear some typical findings that we normally lay out for you in the context of a zone change typically. Those findings also, not all of them, but I would respectfully suggest at least 2 of them have been captured more or less by what you've already discussed. And these are going to sound familiar to you, but we would recommend you make such a finding if you are going to vote to approve these proposals. One would be time, experience, and responsible planning for contemporary and future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed amendment. And likewise, that the amendment would promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values in the community. That is, the others have to do with, I'm sorry, I read the wrong one. It's been demonstrated that the proposed regulation amendment is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town of Fairfield. So those 3, I would, in line with, very similar to what you've already articulated.
Thank you. I forgot about that. Yes, whenever we do enact a zone change or regulation change, we're supposed to make those findings, and thank you.
Joe usually gives them to us, so I can go shorter, but oh well, what are you going to do? Sorry, Joe. Oh, okay, well, anyway.
So we wanted to wait to see what you had to say.
Those are the findings we need to make. That's what the motion really is about.
That we find those appropriate points. And
this is time, experience, and reasonable planning. And I think we've all taken time, experience, and reasonable planning in reaching it.
And certainly health, the health, welfare, and safety is clearly what is paramount in moving ahead with it.
And the purpose.
Does anybody else have any comments on this matter? Are we ready to vote so we can get to some other subdivision?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, let me go back to whatever. The motion was made and seconded for the zoning regulation, application of the Town of Planning and Zoning Commission to amend Section 2.7, access and rear lots, and Section 5.2.1, access. And the motion was to approve, so I'll call for a vote, and all in favor to approve will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No one is opposed, and the regulation amendments are approved. Okay, next item on our agenda is 960 North Benson Road, subdivision application of 960 North Benson Road, LLC, for 2 lots in an A zone. We heard this on August 27th. Let's see who was here. Mr. Jacobs was not, Mr. Wagner was not. Did either of you watch the video or listen to the tapes?
No.
Okay, so let me try to count heads then. Myself, Mr. Lessie, Commissioner Jacobson, okay, everybody else that was here can sit on it. So Commissioner Calabrese and Commissioner Parker can sit on this as well. Mr. Devanchik,
Yes,
Mr.
I
Lang?
can give you a brief overview of what was presented at the public hearing. The site presently contains a single-family residence. The remainder of the site is a grassy area. A private drive on Dill Road provides an access to the lot. The site is served by public water supply and sanitary sewer. The applicant proposes to subdivide the parcel into 2 lots, conforming to the requirements of the A zone. Once the parcel has been divided into 2 separate lots, a single-family residence would be constructed on each of these lots. Each lot will be serviced by public water supply and sanitary sewer. A private drive from North Benson Road will provide access to Lot A1. A new private drive from Dill Road would provide access to the new Lot A2. As you know, in this zone, the minimum lot size for A residence zones is 9,375 square feet. This plan proposes for Lot A1 to be 11,882 square feet, and for Lot A2 to be 11,779 square feet. Engineering recommendations submitted at the hearing include required street curbing to be asphalt, or is recommending that required street curbing be asphalt consistent with the newly constructed curbing, that driveway aprons and sidewalks would still remain recommendation under concrete, which is our subdivision regulation requirements. The applicant stated at the hearing that all the engineering recommendations will be included in the proposal, including the drainage connection to the town's drainage system, on-site detention size to the new house size, which is determined and confirmed during the building permit process. Installing earth and berm along the southeastern corners and easterly property lines, yard drains, sumps, and the original driveway to be moved further from North Benson Road for increasing stopping distance and to address any line of sight issues. That, Mr. Chairman, was what was submitted at the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Devanchik. Do we have a motion? Motion to approve by Commissioner Parker, second by Commissioner Alessi. Any discussion? Mr. Alessi?
No, I'll just say it's another subdivision. It's really only one house. And I think by Ms. Pooley's recommendations, I don't think the people behind this house are going to have any drainage issues. I think all the water's been diverted, and we're probably looking at 1 or 2 cars parked at the house. So, although, you know, I'm not crazy about another subdivision, it does meet all our regulations, so I will be voting for it.
Anyone else? Okay, nobody else? I'll talk then.
Okay.
Yeah, it does meet the technical regulations in terms of the lots. I have a couple concerns related to Ms. Pooley's recommendation. One, we would have to make all these conditions of approval. I mean, she had a letter dated August 27th. We heard this on on August 22nd. We heard this on August 27th. Did we get anything back from her after that? No. Or not in time for the public hearing?
If you remember at the hearing, there was additional information that was submitted to you, site plans, that their applicant engineer indicated that those conditions of approval, or her recommendations were included
Yeah.
in his additional information that was submitted to you. The only thing that would have to be added, I remember,
Mr. Chairman.
was the adjustment of the road driveway, I believe.
Yeah, here's the three things I've got, and then I'll go to Mr. Leslie. The three things I have that I don't really see there was, the drainage, she made reference to the on-site detention to have an outlet for high-level overflows and to be tied in, and they submitted a new plan that showed that it was tied in
Correct.
to the Fairfield drainage system. That was one. The second one was, which concerned me, is no grading plan, and they said the grading plan is what it is today.
Well, they indicated that the plan they submitted had two grade numbers on the site plan.
And they weren't going to change it.
And not that they weren't going to change, but that they were insignificant changes between one side of the lot and the other.
Yeah. This is maybe because I drive by there all the time, there's giant mounds of dirt going on. There's stuff like happening there, and I just don't know like how that's done without
I
like.
can tell you what that is.
Okay.
They're basically stockpiling the topsoil.
Okay, for the land. Okay, I was just wondering, because I go by there, I remember saying, oh, there's the one with no grading plan, and I see like
We received
lots of earth moving going on.
They're just basically stockpiling.
Okay. Okay, and then the last one was there was and just again, these are technical requirements. We're not talking about character or, and I would go to you, Mr. The last one was about the location of the driveway. Did it show she recommended that the one on Dill Road be moved farther down? Okay, go ahead, Mr.
No, I
Wilson.
was going to say regarding this August 22nd letter, I thought Mr. Svanchek presented to it that all these things were met in the application for condition of
They
approval.
were addressed at the hearing, standard, either whether they are in the information that was submitted to you, or your standard procedure is any recommendation from engineering becomes part of your approval.
Yeah, well, honestly, I'd like if possible, to change it to, to include Mrs. Pooley's,
Absolutely.
as a condition of approval, to include this August 22nd letter
That
by
might be
Laura
redundant,
Pooley.
but your standard procedure is that you include that all the time.
Okay, that's fine. No, that's what I had as my conclusion.
Okay, yeah.
Which I thought was originally referenced in
Yeah.
our.
Grading's not my area of expertise. I just saw, they said, no grading plan. I figured, well, you gotta move something when you're putting in a new house.
There's a lot of dirt
so
over there, so,
There's a lot of dirt. Okay, any other comments on this?
I went against, and I was very close on on one last time, but here, by the way, just on the sight lines are they're like double what, so it is even a quibble there, and so that's one of my issues, is you put in a subdivision, how does it impact, is it safe for the people getting in and out? And here, it's pretty safe, so.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say, I think we have to make a finding on, is even when the town engineer recommends it, we need a 6-to-1 vote, I believe, on it, is our regulations require concrete curbs and sidewalks. Even if the town engineer says she's recommending asphalt, in order for us to actually waive that part of, I don't know if waive's the right word, of our recommendations, we have to actually include as a condition that we'll accept, the asphalt curbs, but
On the state portion, because they just, basically, there
are
are new curbs there now
Yeah.
that are asphalt.
Yeah.
So instead, if you were not to waive them, you'd have to rip up the state's new curbs and put in the concrete.
Right, but she does recommend that driveway aprons and sidewalks shall be constructed in concrete.
So do you need a motion for condition?
I think we just need to amend it that we'll,
Amend
that we'll accept leave the asphalt curbs alone, but everything else has to be concrete, which is,
Sidewalk and stuff, you're saying?
Yeah.
Curb, right?
yeah. Right, isn't that, I think I got that one right.
Correct.
We need a 3/4 vote. We don't just have that blatant discretion to waive our own regulations, except,
I would recommend you do that prior to your action.
oh, so we should vote on that separately.
So you want a motion? then?
Yeah, we motion to
I'll
accept
offer-
the town engineer's recommendation on asphalt curbs.
I'll make a motion to do just that, Mr. Chairman, that we accept the town engineer's recommendation to go to asphalt curbs in the case of this subdivision, but all the rest, that is the sidewalks, et cetera, be concrete.
Okay, we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor, any discussion on that, sorry? All in favor of accepting the town engineer's recommendations regarding asphalt curbs, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's a good point. Right, because Need to establish that, okay. And then the main motion, which is with all our usual subdivision conditions plus all the recommendations of the town engineer, it's been made and seconded. Do we have any further discussion on that motion? No? So, all in favor of the 960 North Benson Road subdivision application of 960 North Benson Road LLC for 2 lots in an A zone, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No one is opposed, and it's approved unanimously. Okay, next item on our agenda is 50 Chatham Road, re-subdivision application of 50 Development LLC for 3 lots in an R2 zone. We heard this on August 27th.
Yep, I'll give you a brief overview of what was submitted to the commission. The subject property is located at 50 Chatham Road. The property is 42,009 square feet in size. There was a single-family resident, there was a single-family resident that was built in 1955 that had extensive fire damage and has been removed. This house was served by public water and sanitary sewer. There are no wetlands or regulated areas on the property. The proposal is to divide this property into 3 lots. Each lot will have a new house that will be serviced by public utilities. Each lot would be at least 14,000 square feet in size, as required by our R2 zoning requirements. The 3 homes would be developed with individual driveways to Chatham Road, and turnarounds on each driveway internal on the property. There were 2 previous applications made to re-subdivide this property that were both denied. On August 14th, 2012, the last application was denied for 3 reasons. Just to refresh your memory on those reasons, one was that adequate sightlines, the commission felt, had not been provided for individual driveways according to the applicant's traffic report and also the engineering report. Number 2, it had, in the commission's opinion, had been not demonstrated that adequate provisions for drainage had been made. And number 3, installation of the drainage detention systems within the square of a lot violated lot area and shape requirements of our regulations. A second application was made attempting to alleviate these reasons for denial. That one was denied on May 28, 2013, and the remaining reason that was denied had to do with, again, danger for health and public safety, having to do with adequate light signs have not been provided for the individual driveways. The commission felt it was without the quantitative measurements to establish a state line of sight distance. This application included an updated traffic access and impact study and was presented and discussed at the public hearing. Mr. Chairman, was what was presented at the public hearing.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Calabrese and Commissioner Parker are on this one. Commissioner Jacobs and Commissioner Wagner are not. So do we have a motion? Somebody please make a motion.
Sorry.
Yeah. Motion to approve by Commissioner Kennelly. Second by Commissioner Suter. Okay. Who wants to discuss this?
I guess I'll begin.
Really, it boils down to, with this subdivision, is three lots versus 2, because this continual rejiggering of the driveways is, at the end of the day, about trying to get all 3 of the driveways to match the required sightline distances. And I will say, by the way, I don't know if he's here tonight or if it gets into the press, but I just want to say I want to compliment Michael Galanti, who did this remarkable effort to really, at the micro level, look at this and study it. And I thought I was very impressed by that, and I didn't get an opportunity that night to say that, and I did want to. That being said, my concern remains the issue of sightlines. Now, almost all of these now exceed what is considered the appropriate distance based on the state-required median speed, etc., stuff like that. One of the driveways was still very, very close, like right on the number. And, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. A little too close. And that was a concern to me. So just for the heck of it, I drove up. I happened to be in that area picking somebody up for soccer one day, and I drove through, and I went up and I went down trying to see how close I was hitting those those numbers in terms of what these were based on. And I was going a little faster. Not a lot faster, but I was just, especially downhill, I was 2, 3, 4, 5, not up 5, I won't say 5, but, over what was required. And this was 24 versus, there was a lot of debate versus 24 versus 19, 25, et cetera. But, I had a hard time, especially on the downhill, on the curve, slowing down unless I had been thinking, hey, you know what, around the curve are 3 houses, boom, 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 right next to each other. I got to be careful because somebody could be pulling out. That's what I thought when I did it. And that's my problem here. I don't know if this is going to end up, getting adjudicated or something. This is going to go over our heads. We'll see. But for me, at least, I have to vote for a subdivision, not just today, but into the future. And when you are right on the number on one of these driveways, it just isn't enough for me. We're being asked in our administrative capacity to approve. I just approved a subdivision that had excellent sightlines. I mean, the sightlines were double what were required. But when I'm going to be asked to change the character of an area where there was a house before and now there's going to be 3 put side by side by side, that we got to live with that. And we got to live with it not just when it gets built or by the investors, look to get their highest return, but also what's going to happen in that neighborhood and whether that's safe for the town. So I'm going to oppose this tonight, but it's a close go. But at the end of the day, the same issue keeps coming up. And this developed as 2 units, 2 beautiful homes, would work fantastically there. But as 3, I continue to have a little bit of concern coming around corners and another driveway there. It's trouble for me, so I will vote no.
Okay, anybody else? Mr. Suter?
We have a memo from the town engineer, Laura Pooley. Yeah. We have a memo from the town engineer, Laura Pooley, who reviewed the... No.
I think it's on now.
Is it on? Yes, it is. Okay. We have a memo from the town engineer, Laura Pooley, which she reviews the sightline analysis of the property, and she reviewed what the traffic engineer, Mr. Galante, had presented, and noted that the calculations are based on each individual driveway and at different grades, which was the initial concern I had with the property. There's a very steep grade, and it turns out now it's a 10% grade from driveway 1 going down the hill, and also when you're coming up the hill, which affects speed. So it was a very close call as to whether there was adequate sightlines. But Mr. Galante presented a revised map showing the sightlines, and they did indicate that there were adequate sightlines, and Laura Pooley actually made a finding in her memo that the actual sightlines shown for all driveways either meets or exceeds the required stopping sight distances as determined in the traffic report. And I believe our regulations give her the last word on stopping sight distances. So I think the applicant has met its burden of proof on this property, and that we should approve the subdivision.
Thank you, Mr. Suter. Anyone else? Commissioner Jacobson and Commissioner Calabrese.
I will support this reluctantly. I think they have met their burden of proof. I have to go by the engineer and the traffic expert who says that it's safe. I would prefer 2 houses as well, but they're allowed by our zoning to have 3, so I will vote yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobson. Commissioner Calabrese.
For me, this one ultimately comes down to exactly what Commissioner Kennelly is saying. It's 3 houses versus 2 houses, and for me, the sight lines are just too close to be right on. And on that road, there's that sharp turn. You've got the downhill grade. I am not going to support this time around.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Parker.
I'll join my colleagues in not supporting this for any number of reasons. I think it's we have difficulty with the sight lines, and I think it's out of character for the neighborhood. I think it's a shame that that house was originally burned down, but to replace 1 house with 3, as much as the architect or the developer claims that it fits in with the neighborhood, it's a neighborhood full of large ranch-style houses, single, and to shove 3 large pseudo-Victorian-looking buildings in there to me is just unacceptable. This could not have happened if one neighbor hadn't sold them a little, almost unusable sliver of land that gave them the proper square footage, and this has not been sitting well with me the whole time, and I'm going to vote against it.
Anyone else? Mr. Alessi, you're the only last man up, but you don't have to speak if you don't want
I
to.
got nothing to say.
Okay, well, I'll speak then. We've heard this 3 times, denied it twice. The first time I thought we had 3 good reasons for denial, still do. The one about the sightlines was, I'll tell you what, the first time, the applicant's traffic report actually said it did not meet the regulations, in words in the traffic report. And there was some back and forth with him and the town engineer. It was never resolved, so that was clear. And there was a couple other valid reasons which they did rectify, and I haven't heard those reasons even come back. One had to do with, potential of blasting, and the other was the minimum square, not being buildable. They've rectified that. The second time, the town engineer actually said the sightlines were okay. We said there weren't because we actually found mathematical inaccuracies in the thing where the words said one thing and the table didn't say that at all. So we requested, as we are allowed to, we're not allowed to consider off-site traffic, I'll say, but we are allowed to consider safe ingress and egress. Sight lines with, profiles and what the regulations were for the appropriate grade. And that was provided. And we have a letter from the town engineer that says, in all the actual sight lines exceed, and she looked at all of them, meets or exceeds. That's the requirement. Exceeds the required stopping sight distances as determined in the traffic report. He used Connecticut DOT standards. It meets or exceeds them. It doesn't have to exceed them by a lot. And, he does make a point. This is not like a busy street. I sympathize with the neighbors. I wish it were too also. Commissioner Parker makes a great point about that sliver of land. The problem is we can't regulate that. Once that sliver of land's acquired, they own the time. I'll say also this is an R2 zone, and I look back in my time on the commission, this is the first subdivision we've actually had in an R2 zone. So we talk about subdivisions, there's not that much of the town that's in the R2. Maybe we ought to look at that someday. But today, as it sits, with our current regulations, I find really no reason to deny it that I could possibly think of, so I have to vote to support it. Anyone else? Commissioner Alessi? Can you give me a break?
You beat me, huh?
We could just vote if nobody has anything else to say.
Honestly, I think it stinks. I don't like it at all. But, like you said, I've looked...
Tell me that.
I just looked through and through. I don't like the idea of 3 houses on this block. I said it the first time it came around. I think it changes the dynamic of the street. I'm not happy about it at all. But like you said, I went through the regulations and I can't find a way to deny it. I think Mr. Galante was on the money with his traffic report and his sight lines. It is what it is. I mean, I think even if we do deny this, we're going to lose on it in court anyway. That's the way I see it. So for me to just say no, and then we go to court, and then we lose it in court again, I don't know. I don't like it, but I can't see denying it. That's what I have to say.
Anyone else? Right. Mr. Suter, you have something to add? Go right ahead.
I know from the comments here and from our previous sessions on this matter that a lot of the commissioners are unhappy with the overall plan that was presented, but we have to act within our regulations, and subdivision regulations prescribe certain standards, and even though we may not like certain aspects of the application, and I include myself among those, I don't like some aspects of the application. I think the applicant has met the burden of what they had to prove to the commission under the subdivision regulations, so I really feel they really don't have really can't say no to the application.
Chairman, sorry, I don't know where this is going, but I would just say this, if these were simply administrative decisions, they simply were done by the town engineer, in other words, the sightlines would simply be submitted to the town engineer for approval or disapproval, then there really wouldn't be a need for the commission to act in its administrative capacity. And I would only say that these other issues that were raised, I agree that that isn't a rationale for us to deny.
Right.
But there is just one driveway that is right on the number, and so you have to have capacity, and if we're, if the, you know.
I hate to throw our own words back at us, but I said this earlier, and I'm not trying to relate it to the subdivision regulation amendments we just passed.
Sure.
Although I will say, that it has nothing to do with this application, that these lots would meet under current subdivision in terms of frontage. They all seem to
Oh, yeah, no,
require
that's
square and frontage. So, you know, if people think that those regulations are gonna like stop subdivisions, well, no,
No.
it would have nothing to do with this one. But we, in February 2009, we changed our sight line to, it used to say, it had some arbitrary number, like sight lines of 225 feet must be
Right.
provided, did not specify the speed. Our regulations now read, the staff can correct me if I'm wrong, I think they have that, adequate sight lines for all driveway as determined by the town engineer. So I can't substitute my judgment for hers here. That's-
Well, then
We do act in a capacity, we've actually gone over it, I mean, just, I don't have anything to do that
Okay.
on here. Go
another,
ahead.
I think we know where we are, so
Yeah.
no need to belabor the point. A lot of folks here want to hear this stuff.
For the sake of not putting this through a court process, I will support it, but I really find it a very unattractive project.
I think we're all on the
We all
same page
do.
with that. I think we all feel that about that. I mean, I don't think that's the issue
Right.
here. I don't think anybody of us find it attractive. I really don't.
I think we
I
vote
said
on
it the last
attractive.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the last time we had a problem with, what was it, the draining system under the house or in the where was it?
We had a problem with the potential drainage and also the blasting on the rock.
We had a place with the
And there
blasting
was,
the rock.
and the minimum square, and those were
And then it's- I
remediated.
mean, that's all been changed. I mean, I don't know. I think the person who's living right next door on Chatham Road to the bottom of that hill, I think, you know, they addressed the drainage problems a lot this time around. So I think, you know, the redirection of water, they're not gonna have effect. I want 3 houses on that street, but I can't see any other way.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could take a preliminary vote of whether any of us want 3 houses on that street.
No.
And then we could take a vote on whether to approve the subdivision. Because I would vote no on that, if that's all it was, I would gladly vote no.
But here's the thing.
I agree with you, Mr. Cannell, you said I think it stinks too. but
I think it was
that's-
Mr. Alessi.
Mr. Alessi said that, yeah.
No, look, really the only debate, look, and we got a lot of people here, but the only debate, just to we're on the record on this, is, I think maybe because I'm not an excellent attorney like Doug, I mean, and maybe because you pay attention to these things with great care, Mr. Chairman, is that for me, when we say that the town engineer, you know, gives us this finding, that's still, to me, I have to go down there and look. And I would just say that one of the driveways is right on the number, right on the number. It's not, I mean, it doesn't meet the number, but it's right on it. And that's why I'm nervous about this. That's all. If, you know, if these had the kind of sightlines, say, that the subdivision we approved a little while ago had, I too would be aboard. But it's got nothing to do with having 3 versus 2 or anything else now. It's just, for me, I'm a little concerned about that. But maybe I should just simply accept what Ms. Pooley said.
Anyone else wish to comment on this subdivision? We have 3 more items before we even get to public hearing. So the night seemed to have gotten away from me here. Any other comments on this? We still want to deliberate it as, you know, as we do. So we have a subdivision, the motion's been made and seconded. Can't remember who made it and seconded it. We'll have all the normal subdivision conditions. We don't have curbs and sidewalks in the R2 zone, so we can't do that. No, we cannot do that. Much as I love curbs and sidewalks. No, we're not doing that. Any other discussion on this? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of 50 Chatham Road, re-subdivision application of 50 Development LLC for 3 lots in an R2 zone, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Mr. Kennelly and Mr. Calabrese are opposed. The other 5 commissioners voting are voted in favor, and it's approved 5-2. Next item on our agenda is 425 Tungus Hill Road. Request of Lee Myro for 1-year renewal of a permit for Christmas tree sales in the Design Commercial District.
If it were light enough outside, you'd be able to see out this window
Said that last year.
to the lot across the street where Christmas trees have been sold for the last 2 years. The original approval called for 1-year recertification since it was a new location. Last year, you approved a 1-year recertification to be sold. This is now a second request for a 1-year renewal for that tree lot.
Yes, motion.
I'll move to approve. I'd also like to know from staff, do we have any negative comment about public complaints or anything?
No,
What?
I have no record of any complaints or issues.
Letters. I didn't hear his question.
You want to know if we have any record of negative,
Negative comments?
negativity? We have no complaints on record.
Guess they sold a lot of Christmas trees last year.
Any comments on this? We have a motion to approve. Do we have it seconded? Please, would somebody second it? Thank you, Mr. Alessi. Yes. Keep things moving. Any comments on this? Mr. Jacobs?
I've voted against this the 2 other times. I intend to vote against it this time. They're competing with nonprofits. They're competing with established businesses in the town that pay taxes in this town. They're taking up parking spaces that were set for the businesses that exist there. We have regulations where a business has to have a certain amount of parking spaces per square footage. They're taking up those parking spaces, so the businesses for that period of time do not have the proper parking to conduct their business. So I will be voting against this.
Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Jacobson.
I agree with Commissioner Jacobs. I don't believe in businesses that just kind of come and go. I think the businesses should be established. They do pay taxes. I will not be supporting this at the risk of being a Grinch.
Does the business have to pay tax on their retail sales?
Sales tax, I'm assuming.
I'm not in a position to know that one way or the other.
Yeah, so my reaction to that last comment is that I would expect them to collect sales tax if they're legally required to do it. So I'll be supporting this application.
Yes, Commissioner Suter.
On the parking issue, I'd just like to note that the Dairy Queen site sells Christmas trees, quite a lot of them, as a matter of fact, and they don't meet the parking requirements either, so I don't think that's an adequate issue.
I had concerns about this 2 years ago. I voted against it with Mr. Jacobs, and then last year I think I voted for it. And if we haven't had any concerns registered or anybody knows of any issues that we've seen, I'd be inclined to support it again. Anyone else? So the motion's been made and seconded for 425 Tungus Hill Cutoff, request of Lee Myro for a 1-year renewal of a permit for Christmas tree sales in the Design Commercial District. The regular members vote on this one. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Mr. Jacobs and Commissioner Jacobson are opposed. The other 5 members are in favor, and it's approved. Okay. Next, we have 400 Post Road, application of Robert Schulten to establish a medical marijuana dispensary in portion of an existing building, premises, I cannot speak, I need some help tonight, in the Design Commercial District.
Inasmuch as that you have item 2 for public hearing, which is a similar use that you voted to go to public hearing last time, we would recommend that you consider a similar course of action, or at the least perhaps tabling this matter until you have the hearing for the dispensary that's on for this evening. So, but you have the information ahead of you. This is really no different than what we're going to hear for a different location this evening in hearing.
Commissioner Kennelly.
I'll move it that we go ahead and move this compliance request to a public hearing.
Motion of public hearing by Commissioner Kennelly, second by Commissioner Suter. Any discussion?
I'll make a competing motion to table the item until the hearing on the first application has been completed.
Oh, so don't even schedule
Don't
it
even
until the
schedule it?
first
Yeah.
Don't
application?
even
Fine.
schedule it.
Okay.
But it still should go to public hearing now? or just table
I
it?
believe that absolutely at some point, if our consideration of the item, is proper, then we ought to move it to public hearing, but,
So you want to
I'd move to table it until the completion
Okay,
of
so
the
that's a
public
competing, that actually is a competing motion, it's a different motion, sorry, I didn't understand. And we need Mr. Leclerc back for this hearing.
Yeah, really, no, my God.
So there's been motion been made and seconded to move it to public hearing, which is not, they applied for a compliance application, and the argument on the last time was we wanted to hear a public hearing. I know we have a public hearing of, I don't want to say a similar nature, but yeah.
I got you.
Right.
Joe.
So,
So, this is now debate on his motion.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr.
Right.
Chairman, if I
Yeah.
can, I just wanted to mention that because it is a compliance and the public hearing aspect is discretionary, there is a time limit.
Yeah.
65 days.
65 days, yeah.
So,
These get- They get automatically approved if we don't
yeah,
act.
ultimately, you're going to set the hearing anyway, regardless of what happens tonight. I don't anticipate there being a problem. We would just have to come back to another meeting for you to recommend it, but there is a 65-day time limit.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you can actually amend the motion. I don't know that you can actually have a competing motion.
Right.
You could actually vote that we don't move it to public hearing so that we table it.
Correct. So, you know,
That's fine.
we're now debating the motion that's on the table, which is to
move it to public hearing, yes.
I would urge the commissioners to reject the current motion, after which I will immediately make a new motion to table it until our next regularly scheduled meeting, at which time I believe that this public hearing should be closed. Maybe it might not be, maybe it will, whatever. But in 2 weeks' time, we will resume our consideration of this item, whether we should move it to public hearing at that point or request further information or what have you.
Okay.
But so I would urge everyone to vote against the current motion that's now before us, after which I will immediately make a motion to table the item until our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Or you could withdraw your motion.
Yeah, I could withdraw my motion. I may, to save us
Well,
the
you
time.
could- we can
But here's
discuss
my
it,
question.
yeah.
When does the application for the compliance begin the 65-day clock? Or tonight? So my only concern would be that, you know, the clock begins to tick, and if we don't make our deadline for one reason or another, let's say passionate people come out tonight and talk for hours about whatever issue, and again, we slip...
I think you're still okay, because
still
even
okay.
if you recommend it at the hearing tonight, I don't think you'd have it at the next meeting anyway.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
So, I mean, because we have some notice requirements. However, if we
Right.
were to make the recommendation next meeting, we could probably, we'd still be able, I believe, to hold the hearing within the time limit. Although you still do have to make the decision even after the hearing, within the 65-day period.
So compliance here today means clock's ticking for 65, but your sense is, Mr. Bajanchik, that we have an agenda in the next 2 months, that we
I
can
think-
meet
I think
this,
you'll be all right.
and we postpone 2
If you want
weeks.
to table, I think you'd be all right.
Then rather than, I'll simply withdraw my motion and allow a new motion to the floor.
Okay, do we have any other motions?
Motion to table the item.
Second by Commissioner Jacobs, Alessi, hands up at the same, Jacobs. The exact same time, I'm sorry, I apologize. So the motion's been made and seconded to table this item, which will stay on our agenda, which is fine. We could even approve it as a compliance application, if we, or deny, whatever, we could take it
Down the
up
line,
as
we
that.
could have, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so any discussion on the motion to table? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of motion to table 400 Post Road, application of Robert Schulten to establish a medical marijuana dispensary in a portion of the existing building, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No one's opposed. Motion's tabled. We'll reconfigure, take just a couple of minutes before, and then we'll start the public hearing. Thank you. I did that without Brian. All right, I'm going to bang the gavel. Sorry. This is the September 10th, 2013 public hearing of the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. We have two items on our agenda tonight. The first item is a special exception, 500 Algonquin Road, special exception application of Brooklawn Country Club for renovations in addition to an existing pool house premises in the AAA zone. Mr. Fowler.
Good evening, members of the commission, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm pleased to be here tonight representing the Brooklawn Country Club. With me tonight is Brian Dwyer, our general manager, Meredith McCormick, who is the chairman of our building committee, and Mr. Phil Cerrone, who is our architect, who you'll be hearing from shortly. This is a very straightforward application. I think most of you are all familiar with Brooklawn Country Club. It had existed for many, many decades at its current location, provides recreational facilities and a private recreational club for many individuals, many of whom are Fairfield residents and have historically been so. The club is a permitted use pursuant to Section 5.1.4B of your zoning regulations. In an effort to ensure that our club facilities continue to meet the expectations of our current membership, a renovation to the existing pool house is proposed. The contemplated plan, which Phil will review with you briefly but thoroughly in a second, is the result of a prolonged study by the club designed to identify its current and future facility needs. The renovations are going to involve reconfiguration of the existing covered portion of the existing patio and we will include provision for a second floor seasonal dining area that will be used in conjunction with the pool. Obviously, Phil is the one who'll give you a better feel for this, so I'm going to call on him to briefly walk you through it.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Philip Sorrell. My office is in Fairfield. I'm the architect for this project. Just walking you through the project quickly, on the site, there's the existing pool house and clubhouse adjacent to each other. You can see on here, this yellowed area is where there's an existing patio. And the expansion that we're planning on doing is to put a roof over that patio with a second floor dining terrace for about 45 people upstairs. And then in addition to that, in the front of the building, in the front of this same building, we're planning on putting a portico just as an entrance, a covering of the entrance. We're also, as part of this project, is renovation of the entire building, but the work that we're doing aside from those two aspects is a little bit of trim work on the outside, and everything else is inside the building. The footprint of the building itself is staying as it is. The use of the building is staying as it is. Inside the building, there's an existing snack bar, which we're doing a little bit of renovation on, but it's going to remain. Men's and ladies' locker rooms, some lockers for storage, lifeguard station, and bathrooms. And then in the section of the building we're really not working over here is bag storage and caddy master's area. As I mentioned, we're doing a deck upstairs here, which is basically at the same elevation of the roof. So from the street side of the building, from the parking lot side of the building, you actually won't even be able to see the deck that we're putting up because it's at the eave elevation of the roof. So the gable is much higher than where our roof deck is going to be in the back. On the exterior, the building's clapboard siding, asphalt shingled roofs. We're going to be adding some trim and this little entrance portico in the front here, and then in the back, all we're doing is roofing over the existing patio, creating a deck upstairs with an AZAC type railing, AZAC or wood decking upstairs. And it'll also, aside from allowing us to have people upstairs, it'll also give protection so that if there's a thunderstorm or something, or it starts raining, people are at the pool, it'll be an area where everybody can go under cover. We'll add lightning protection to the building also at the same time, so happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Mr. Jacobs?
Can you just go over the additional square footage and what your area is now? So I'm assuming with the amount of golf course, you have so much acreage that you could probably be building out many times this amount. So if you could just go over that.
Sure.
The addition is approximately 800 square feet that we're adding. That's the deck in the back. I don't actually have the coverage of the whole property.
How many acres is the property?
140 acres. So because of the size of the property, we just had the survey done of this area. We didn't have the whole property resurveyed to do the coverage calculations for the whole property, but we're adding less than 1,000 square feet of coverage. And with that said, everything that we're adding is already impervious concrete surfaces that we're just putting a roof over.
Thank you, Phil. So in essence, the two driving forces here, obviously, this is going to be a major aesthetic enhancement to the facility. A lot of that is not really before you in the special exception, but the internal renovation, the new trim work, the portico clearly is. It's going to be very beautiful, but obviously, the club strives very hard and has had under the Emeritus and other people's leadership, looking at what the facilities are and what we need the facilities to be for our current membership. And one of the things that we've heard time and time again is to improve the pool area in terms of just some opportunities for casual dining, opportunities for the inclement weather protection and so on. So this just does that. And I say that in conclusion because I want to emphasize the obvious. And that is the club is not contemplating any change in its membership levels. This is not about adding members, intensifying the use of this 140-acre piece of property. It's simply a renovation of an existing facility that is seasonal in nature in order to meet the current and ongoing needs and desires and requests of our existing membership. So we'd be pleased to answer any questions that you might have, but that's the essence of the application. Mr. Alessio.
I wish I had a pointer. The space you have lined up between building A and a pool, it's like
Right here.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
This area right here is lawn area.
It's going to continue, unless I have deck, yeah, I mean, next
No.
door.
No, where this yellow is existing concrete patio. Just beyond the yellow is actually grass area that's going to remain as grass.
Okay.
And then beyond that is some patio area that's around the pool.
So that's grass, and between the grass and the pool is patio?
Correct. And that's going to stay.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Any other questions? Mr. Jacobs?
This is just a comment having to do with what was just part of what was said, and has nothing to do with this, how we're going to go through this. But when you said AZAC or wood, I would recommend the AZAC.
Right, well, the railings are all AZAC, so.
Yeah, and just because they're, the 30-year warranty, the maintenance-free, they look beautiful, they don't get splinters, they're just a wonderful thing.
Free consultation.
That's the one, yes.
We appreciate that.
Right, TPNT sponsored by AZAC. Any other questions for the applicant? Anything else for the applicant? Anyone else want to ask Mr. Fallon or Mr. Trone? Anything further, Mr. Fallon?
No, sir, pending any questions.
I'll just ask if any member of the public wishes to be heard on this application. Can I go in? On the 500 Algonquin Road. Hearing none, anything further?
Thank you very much.
Then I will close the hearing. The next item on our agenda is 222 Post Road, application of Connecticut Wellness Centers, LLC, to establish a medical marijuana dispensary in a portion of an existing building, premises in the design commercial district. Just before we get started, I see a lot of people here. I assume since you're still here through all we've been through, you're here to hear this application, because there's nothing else on our agenda. Just want to walk through how we run public hearings, since we didn't have any comment on the first one. The applicant has a chance to present. They can call people to speak about the application if they wish, and the commission asks questions of the applicant. Once the applicant says that they've completed the presentation, I'll give the public a chance to speak. So there's no questions while the applicant's presenting or anything like that, but anybody that wishes to be heard on this application will have the opportunity to be heard. We don't have preset time limits. If you've got something to say, we want to hear it.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Diane Whitney from the law firm of Pullman and Comley. And on behalf of CT Wellness Centers, LLC, we are very pleased to be able to present to you what we think is a much-needed and very interesting application. This is an application for a certificate of zoning compliance for a change of use for property at 222 Post Road, and the change of use is the segment is now vacant, but it was most recently apparently an insurance agency. And the use we are proposing is for a medical marijuana dispensary. This is in compliance with sections 2.1 through 2.3 of your zoning regulations, and it is in a designed commercial district. With me tonight is David Lipton, a principal in CT Wellness Centers, and Bob Tendler, also a member of the LLC and a licensed pharmacist in Connecticut, and also a member of the Zoning Commission in Southbury. I won't go through the very long history and qualifications of Mr. Tendler. I believe you have all received binders of information about our application, and since I know that you have read them, I don't intend to walk you through everything in those binders. I'm sure you're relieved. But I would like to explain to you what this is, because we all recognize it's a new use for Connecticut and certainly a new use for Fairfield. The plan is to operate a medical marijuana dispensary in this small storefront. It consists of about 1,600 square feet, and as I said, is now vacant. This use is considered a retail pharmacy, a use which is allowed in this DCD zone. I'm sure you're familiar with the property, and we have included photographs and site plans of the property. This is called, I believe, Post Road Plaza, and it's 2 buildings with parking in front. I counted the parking tonight. So on the right, our piece of this is on, as you look at this from the street, our piece is on the right-hand side, the right-hand building, and there are 58 parking spaces there. And on the left-hand side, there are 28. I may have missed one or two, but they're roughly 58 and 28 parking spaces, which seem to be more than adequate for the uses which are there. I imagine you're familiar that this use is a new use that was just allowed in Connecticut by the legislature effective May 31st of 2012. The regulations for this use were became finally effective September 6th, 2013. This is a use that is regulated by the Department of Consumer Protection, and the regulations are very, very strict. I've included copies of the regulations in your binders. I've also included a summary of those, and I need to make sure you understand that that summary is simply my work. There's nothing official about that. I was just trying to give you an outline of what the regulations are because they're pretty lengthy. For this use, only registered patients and caregivers may even enter the building. Patients must have a prescription from a specially licensed physician, and currently there are in Connecticut about 800 registered patients and 94 registered physicians. The department expects those numbers to go up by quite a lot, but those are the numbers as of today. Only certain debilitating conditions are eligible for prescriptions, and I have the Department of Consumer Protection, they just issued, actually, for everybody's information, a list of the qualifications. I didn't know if that would be of interest to you. Let me hand it out in case it is. There should be.
Yeah, you can do that.
It is online. That's simply copied from the website.
Attorney Whitney, we have a question. Sometimes we like to get a little interactive. If it throws you off, we won't do it. But you have a question
that's
about what
fine.
you just said? Commissioner
Yeah,
Ernest?
where are people getting their medical marijuana now?
What a good question.
Okay.
I don't know.
But they're getting it.
You know, I have to assume that some are getting it, and probably through illegal means. Our understanding from Bill Rubenstein, who is the commissioner of the Department of Consumer Protection, in answer to our question, which was, why are you licensing patients now when they can't legally obtain the product?
Well, they can in the form of a pill. I mean, doctors prescribe medical marijuana in a pill now.
I don't know that. Do you
They
know
do,
that?
yeah,
Oh.
they do.
Well, his answer was that was in order to protect them in case they are getting it through illegal means.
Well, they are getting it in legal means now. I mean, if a doctor prescribes medical marijuana through the pharmacy, they can get a pill.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah. And it's, and when,
No. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. She can call you. The public can't speak unless she calls.
If David Lipton, if he could
That's fine,
explain
but she
that,
has to, yeah.
may I ask him to explain
Yeah,
that?
oh, absolutely. The applicant, yeah, if you're the applicant, you can speak. We just can't have other people shouting stuff out.
He is.
Absolutely.
This is
No.
David Lipton.
And you just have to come to the mic and state your name.
This is David Lipton and
Anybody
Bob.
you want to call can
Bob
come up and
Kendler.
speak as long as
They
can
obviously
state
know
their
this better than I.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is David Lipton with Connecticut Wellness Centers, and this is Robert Tendler, the pharmacist, who's also on the Planning and Zoning in Southbury for many years. In the state of Connecticut, there is no medical marijuana available now. They're just now licensing dispensaries and cultivation centers. It is believed that by May of 2014, once everyone is licensed, the cultivation centers will be providing the medical marijuana to the dispensaries to then dispense for the patients who obtain the registration card from their doctors. The pill that you're referring to is called Marinol, and it's a much different product than actual medical marijuana.
but there are similar pills besides that one that are on the market now.
It's a separate medicine that's by a pharmaceutical company. It's
Right.
a different pharmaceutical product than the actual medical
I mean, it's not
marijuana.
smoking pot, it's taking a pill.
It's a different product that has different benefits than the actual medical marijuana, which has been licensed by the state of Connecticut, by the Department.
I mean, the reason why I say is my father was on it, so I
Okay.
know.
Okay.
And the doctor prescribed it, and we got it. So that's why I'm saying, you know, it is available now in a prescription form, is it not?
Yes, it is, and I'm not a doctor.
I'm not saying grown marijuana is a prescription, but it is available in the pill.
I believe that there are people who are going to be speaking in support of this tonight that are physicians that can speak better to the Marinol product, as they are the ones. There's a woman in the room who's a doctor who has registered a lot of the patients in Connecticut, and she's here to speak. I think for information, it would be better for Dr. Major probably to address that with you.
Okay, so where are the 800 people that are in Connecticut now getting their prescriptions?
Can I? Sure. For you, if you want information, there's a lot
I
of
mean,
people.
we're going to go along with this. I
Okay,
mean,
so
that was
Yeah, I
said,
mean,
there are 800 people.
I don't
wanna
think
say-
we can go with that.
this-
We just want to make sure we do everything in the form of a question, not a debate.
Right.
If you want to ask
And
a
I- and
question
I
about
can-
where they're
I can
getting,
just
that's
say,
fine.
I know you
Mr.
wanna open
Jacobson
this
has
up.
a question,
I don't know
and then I'd like to
Okay.
let,
I know
I
you.
understand, but his statement was,
the applicant can call anybody, whether it's
Okay.
part, yeah,
I'm-
they can call anybody. It could be a traffic engineer, it could be any witness they can. so.
If I could just say one thing, is I know a lot of people in the room here are supporters.
Yeah, but they
I know
should-
you want to hear positives and negatives. I could
Yeah.
just tell from looking in the room, I know the majority of these people are out here to support this. So I know in time you want to hear from.
Right, but we
both.
want to hear from the public
Okay.
at the time. Mr. Wagner makes a good point. If you're just calling out people where the public is best, if you make the presentation, I mean, if there's somebody called to ask expert, like if you have somebody answer the question of Mr.
Well, if
would you like to listen,
Dr.
that's fine.
Major can
Yes.
answer that question.
Yeah.
I am a family physician, Monroe, Connecticut, and Dr. Major, we are practicing medicine and we are practicing alternative care. We have roughly 590 patients signed up for this program. It's a very strict the diseases, what we can recommend it's very strict, okay? Every patient comes in with their medical record, with their recommendation, with their MRI. The diseases are cancer, HIV, Parkinson's, Crohn's disease, MS, wasting syndrome, I think I went
not
through all
answering
of them. Okay, I'm sorry?
Right,
Alzheimer's.
yeah, I mean,
Parkinson's.
right, I mean,
Again.
if
Yes,
just clarify,
I
if
want
that's
to
okay.
speak up for the 600, almost 600 patients. The people are desperate. I'm seeing patients.
the question
I don't
was,
think we
where are
wanted
they
to-
getting their
yeah, I mean,
medication
that's-
now?
We were
Later.
debating a zoning application.
Right,
here.
exactly right. Let's be careful.
I
Mr.
don't know
Jacobson,
where
you had a
they are
question. I
getting,
don't
they
know,
are probably
yeah.
getting their marijuana illegally
Right.
because we don't have dispensaries.
Right, just,
We have to address this problem. These patients are suffering.
But wait a second, the attorney came up and said that there are 800 people now who are getting medical marijuana in the state of Connecticut. Is that not what you're
No,
saying?
no, they are signed up.
Signed up.
We
Signed
just
up,
wanna
they are
establish the
registered. I have 590 in my office. The people are extremely sick, not with me.
Your office represents 590 out of the 800?
Yes.
And they're all residents of Monroe?
No, they are Fairfield, Norwalk, Bridgeport, Danbury, Wilton, Trumbull, all the surrounding.
So I guess you're specializing in marijuana distribution prescriptions?
I am not distributing prescriptions, we are
You know what?
recommending. I'm not specializing,
I'm not sure
I'm
she
an
answered the
internal
question.
medicine
All
doctor.
right, that's fine.
Let
Yeah,
me
fine.
finish, okay? I am seeing these people who are suffering, and I think we have to do something. And I see fantastic results on this medication. I see that the seizures are decreasing. We have cancer patients here who can talk. They have no nausea. They are able to tolerate chemotherapy. I have people who have Parkinson's disease and we are not able to control their shakiness. They are able to function on the medication. I have seen young people whose seizure decreased because the marijuana decreased the seizure.
Pat, you still, Commissioner Jacobson?
Yeah, ask me
She's been asking
questions.
for a while and you keep jumping in,
It
so.
was a 12-point thing ago.
Yeah, right, so we just gotta like hold our questions, and again, I'm not sure why Dr. Major is still talking, I'd rather go back.
No, I just say, I am seeing the people, and I think we have to do something, and
That's different from zoning, the zoning concerns that are before us.
we need to
That's
finish
what I want to
the-
Right.
refocus the dialogue on.
Right, the
because-
folk refocused on the zoning.
because you asked me where they are getting their medication right now.
I did not ask you that, one of the other commissioners, you could
Yeah,
just say, I
and
don't know.
said they are not getting it legally because
not
it's
getting it
not
legally.
She was
legal.
initially-
Okay, the question's been answered.
Initially called up
Commissioner
to
Jacobson, you have a
speak to the
question?
Marinol as opposed to,
It's irrelevant now? Yeah, I mean, we really gotta kind of try to hold this back, I feel.
that's why she was called up. She was called up to respond to the differences between smoking marijuana and the Marinol prescription, which is available through pharmacies. My question that I'd like to ask you is, why must we dispense marijuana for smoking through a dispensary and not through a pharmacy like other controlled substances. Why should we be putting this in a separate zoned, for our zoning
Because the
consideration?
marijuana plant, they can have different
Yeah, we get-
parts. The cannabinoids comes in the marijuana plant, the cannabinoid D, which is good for seizures. That's a special plant. This plant has different
But if it's
components.
prescribed by a doctor, why is
I
it
need-
not
I
being
need-
dispensed through a pharmacy?
I need to take this over.
Right,
I need to finish.
you know what, I mean, we got to go back to the zoning issues, and I want to let Commissioner Jacobs talk. I think Mr. Wagner's question can be answered, but Commissioner Jacobs, you had a question before Mr. Wagner and Mr. Alessi.
Actually, I was just going to answer the oral form of...
Answer, no.
I was just going to say something.
Okay. You can't testify.
I'm not testifying, no. Okay, then I'm not going to say it.
Okay. Right, this is not a deliberate, that's what I want to get. We still got to conduct this like a public hearing. We're not here to deliberate amongst ourselves. We ask questions of the applicant. If they can't answer, that's okay. Just because we come up with a question doesn't mean it needs to be answered.
I think Commissioner Wagner
Did you have a further question, Mr. Wagner?
had a question, if I understand you.
I could probably answer your question, Mr. Wagner, but I would like the applicant to answer about
Thank you.
why it can't be dispensed in a pharmacy.
I have my own ideas as to what the answer is, but I would like to hear from the applicant.
That's simply what the state of Connecticut said had to be the case. I think when the legislation was first passed, people assumed that this would be dispensed through regular pharmacies, and that's not the decision of the state. The decision of the state is it can only be dispensed in separate dispensaries, which are basically one product retail pharmacies.
Right.
Cannot be in regular pharmacies.
Right, so part of this effort here is to ask the applicant questions for information that may not be part of your regular presentation to inform the public about things that they might be thinking and wondering as well. And I think that that is something that's on a lot of people's minds, is why is this being treated separately and distinctly when if it's a prescription and it's being filled by a pharmacist, why is it not being filled at CVS and Walgreens and Stop and Shop Pharmacy?
And probably the answer, I mean, I've given you one answer, but probably the reason for that answer is that the use of marijuana still violates federal law.
So should we not even be discussing this?
No,
You
come on.
You won't.
May I ask a question?
Let's just ask the public, I have a question too, but I'd like to, I want to
ask
hold
her-
it
I wanna
until she
ask her-
finished her presentation.
Okay, let me keep talking and then
Yeah,
we'll...
it's right on this
catch up.
point?
It is on this point.
Okay. Let's try to avoid, comments.
You're right, we will have time to lay out their positions about
Yes.
marijuana. But my question to you is because I want to follow what Commissioner Wagner was asking you. So to put, hopefully not a too fine a point on it, in your opinion, the reason for the state doing this was to allow the distribution of marijuana to be the sole product of these facilities rather than one of others. The idea being, I guess, the goal would be to make it somehow more secure, that individuals would be known to the dispensary officials. It would be pretty easy to see whether the appropriate people with the licenses would have it, as opposed to going to the CVS where who knows who shows up, and after a while it's looser, and my dad asked me to come down and drop his prescription. Can you give me his prescription? The idea is that this separate dispensary is to increase, again, I'm not putting words in your mouth, I want to make sure you're telling me this is what your opinion might be on this. But to increase the security around this, to increase the likelihood that who this product is being delivered to is the individual with the appropriate prescription.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Exactly.
And the license.
And the appropriate license, thanks. It's just, okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Because I have a question about zoning.
Is that why we're here?
Would you like
Can I ask a question before you move on?
Sure.
It's right about something you already said, so I'd rather do that instead of take it on a thread. You refer to this as a new use, and you say it's regulated by the Department of Consumer Protection.
Consumer protection.
Right. And then in your application, you say that the 9th commercial district provides for retail uses. In another ad, there's like an editorial in there, you say, well, it's up to municipalities to fit in where it fits in our zoning regulations. I will tell you, I shouldn't tell, I would just state that uses that are not permitted are prohibited. So you're claiming this is a retail use, is that correct?
That's the way it is being treated, as a retail
Well,
pharmacy.
I'm sorry.
That's the way it is in an application.
Right, that's the way in the application for retail use.
A retail application.
And you actually stated that only patients with a prescription can use it, only registers and patients and caregivers may enter the facility. So the public can't enter.
Exactly.
Okay. I just had a question for staff. we have hundreds of retail uses in our town. Is there a single one you can think of where the public can't enter? Be aware of? I'm just saying, I'm just trying to stop. My concern is that this is a different use than a normal retail
The answer to
use.
that question is no. However, does that not mean these people are customers?
That's true. I'm just asking,
The
it
answer to
seems,
the question is no.
yeah. At one kind, the application is talking about a new use, and they're saying, well, it's like a retail use. To me, and again, I'm not debating it, I'm just trying to question the foundation for how this should be treated. Here, right in your own presentation, you said, should it be a clinic, should it be that? I just don't know. We've never had one of these before, so I just want to establish how we should be treating it. I'm not sure it's a retail use, but again, that's for another time. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying. Thank you.
Well, actually, there are, not to put too fine a point on it, there are uses for which you have to pre-qualify. You can't go into a fitness club unless you buy a membership.
You can walk in the door.
You can walk in the door, and in this case, you can't even walk in the door
Right.
unless you have obtained that special card that allows you to get in.
Right.
But as I think I'm forgetting which commissioner said, obviously the concern here is security, is keeping this this particular substance out of the hands of people who might misuse it. And children are one of those areas that the state has decided children may not have this product. Other states, interestingly, have said they may, if they go through the same process with a physician and pre-qualify, but Connecticut has not said that yet. To finish some of my zoning things, there must be, pursuant to the state regulations, elaborate security measures for this use, as somebody alluded to. The applicant has hired Tyco Integrated Services, which will put together an entire security plan, which will include, some of the things this has to include will be a perimeter alarm, 24-hour recording cameras, a silent alarm, a panic alarm, a motion detector, and a safe where the product will be stored during those hours when the dispensary is not open. Mr. Lipton has met with Police Chief McNamara and Deputy Chief Liddy and explained the security measures, and they had a very positive meeting. We will, when the security plan is completed, we will meet with them again and tell them all of the security measures, but I think it's fair to say that they were impressed with the measures that will be installed. The floor plan you have, however, is a very primitive floor plan because the security measures have not yet been designed. And when they are designed, it will require a building permit to alter the floor plan to put in all of these security measures. In compliance with your regulations, our understanding is this complies with all of the regulations for this particular district. There is ample off-street parking. The only signage on the building will say CT Wellness Centers LLC, and I think you can even see in the photographs, there is a space for a sign, and that's the space we will use, and the signage will be consistent with the other signage along the strip. It will not say anything about marijuana. It will simply say CT Wellness Centers LLC.
That's required by the state regulation, correct?
I think that it is, yeah. In other things to comply with the state regulations, as I said, you have a copy of the regulations and the summary in tabs G and H. A registered pharmacist must be present in the facility at all hours when it is open. The security measures I mentioned. The entire business is very, very controlled, and if you read the regulations or the summary, you know that. There is very careful record keeping about every prescription, every patient. In fact, the prescriptions sold every day are registered every day with the drug control unit of the Department of Consumer Protection. And no marijuana may be consumed on site at any time. As I said, this use is legal in Connecticut. It still violates federal law. You have in tab E of your binder 2 memos. one from the Justice Department very recently issued, which is really confirming a prior Justice Department memo, and one from Attorney General George Jepson, both explaining why this use can be legally used in Connecticut, although it still violates federal law. And the Justice Department memo is particularly interesting because it basically says if you're in a state, and that memo applies to the whole country, if you're in a state where this particular use is very carefully controlled, we will not enforce the federal law against people who are using this product consistent with the state regulations. It also explains their priorities in enforcement, two of which are involvement of crime and involvement of children in the use. And the state regulations, I think, are carefully constructed to make sure that neither of those things can happen. The procedure going forward is that we must have local approval from you before we can apply to the state to be licensed. So it's a two-step licensing approval. The Department of Consumer Protection will award between 3 and 5 dispensary licenses. Interestingly, Fairfield County is listed as the first county that they are interested in seeing served. They say that the department, will take into account the number of registered users in each area before they award any licenses. However, I called the department the other day to find out how many registered patients there are in Fairfield, and they haven't yet compiled the numbers. But I guess they are assuming that Fairfield County is going to have a number of users. Yes, sir.
How many applicants are there for the dispensary license?
There are no applicants yet because no one has received local approval yet.
So this is the first step, and then should you receive approval from a zoning authority, then the applicant would proceed to the state level.
Exactly. And they just issued the applications, and in fact, I have brought you copies of them, but I thought you would like to see how extensive the application process is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
These were just issued, I believe, Friday.
So do the state regulations, just kind of following on my earlier question, requiring that it be a separate facility, do the state regulations suggest that it cannot be co-located with other relevant retail uses, such as a pharmacy?
Yes.
Even if that was to be in a building next door? Is there a distance requirement in between facilities?
No. That's a good question. If you had a CVS here, and in the next unit, but separate, you had a marijuana dispensary, I'm not aware that that would be forbidden. I think that, again, my opinion, it would be pretty foolish to involve the same pharmacists in the two businesses. If it was my client, I would advise them not to have a pharmacist from the CVS in the dispensary.
And why is that?
Because I think it would be safer to keep the two uses very segregated. I don't know that it's required. I'm just thinking that would probably be a good practice.
Well, say safer from a public safety perspective?
No, from accounting to the Department of Consumer Protection for how you are complying with their regulations.
Because go ahead, I'm sorry. Sorry.
We need to go in order.
I'm sorry, I'll
You
wait
raise
for
your
it.
hand, when Mr. Wagner gets done, you talk.
Okay, I just want to, because you just mentioned that there's a
Yeah, I just
requirement
wanna-
for a...
Are you serious?
I am serious. She just mentioned that they have to have
Look,
a
we
pharmacist.
really need to
Okay.
go in order, right? And everybody needs to do that. You raise your hand, you ask questions, when you're done, you stop. I'm asking the public not to yell things out. We have to show the correct example. Mr. Wagner, you have another question?
I did, yes.
Well, you may finish, and then Mr. Kennelly may go, and then I'll go.
Thank
And then
you
we'll let
very
the
much.
applicant go back to presenting.
So a regular pharmacy has to account for its filling of prescriptions and report back on how it dispenses its drugs. But that is to a different state regulatory authority?
No, it's to the same state regulatory authority, but it's kind of a different division of that authority, and it's accounted for in a different way. And although I wouldn't say those regulations for a regular pharmacy are lax, they are not as strict as the medical marijuana record-keeping requirements.
Okay.
I just think it would make sense from a business standpoint to keep them segregated.
Okay. And then my last question, and then you can feel free to resume your line. Can you explain if there was any consideration as to the specific location that you've chosen to make an application for this facility? How was this location in the town of Fairfield chosen by the applicant?
The applicant has looked at a number of locations in a number of different towns. This location seemed ideal. It seems to be well situated for a population area which is anticipated to have a number of patients who will need this product. It's kind of anonymous. I mean, we don't want, and I think the commission, the department would not look favorably upon a big splashy facility. We want a very low-key, quiet facility which has ample parking and good egress and exit, ingress and egress. And I'm happy to say it has very good sight lines too in this location.
Okay.
And we think the security measures can be installed here with relative ease, although they will be exceedingly expensive, but it's very possible to install them here. So it seemed ideal for a number of reasons. Also, there are a number of medical facilities not very far from this site, which seemed like a plus also.
Okay, Mr. Kennelly.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I apologize for kind of jumping the order. I didn't mean to do that. I was just trying to clarify something that Commissioner Rager was kind of pressing you on. This issue of could you have a pharmacist at the Rite Aid next door and also a pharmacist at the dispensary. Earlier, I thought I heard that the pharmacist must always be in the premises of the dispensary as part of the state regulations controlling how this dispensary is operated.
Yes.
So what I guess I'm saying is, and why I jumped in there, was you can't have a pharmacist who could somehow be running back and forth.
I wasn't suggesting that. That was clear. I wasn't suggesting that there would be a pharmacist that was just running back and forth and running both.
Okay,
I said next door to each other.
I'm just asking the applicant. So the point is, the individual who would be a pharmacist for the dispensary would have to be on premises at all times. They couldn't move between facilities. So
Correct.
they couldn't be the pharmacist for both.
They must be physically present in
the facility. Okay, when it's operational. Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Parker.
Thank you. You referred to the location as being a good spot in terms of the geographical area. Would you please tell us exactly what the geographical area is?
I guess I would define it as Fairfield County, which is how the department seems to be defining it also, since and you can tell in this handout that includes the application. Actually, I should have made that plain. This handout of the application also includes, before the actual application, some guidance from the department about the application process. And if you'll see on the very first page, it says DCP anticipates awarding 3 to 5 dispensary facility licenses at locations capable of serving the following areas. Number 1, Fairfield County.
So we would be the only facility in Fairfield County if we were to grant this.
Well, actually, I mean, we don't know. The commissioner said he is going to award 3 to 5 dispensary licenses. I don't know where they're going to be. I think it's very probable there will not be more than 1 in this immediate area, but I don't know that. It's interesting to note we have a consultant who is from Newington but now lives in Colorado, and there's something like 1,200 dispensaries in Colorado. Connecticut will have 3 to 5. I'm sure eventually there will be more, but the initial award will be 3 to 5.
Thank you.
They are being very, very careful about this.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, you're done. Commissioner Parker? We have Commissioner Jacobson and then Commissioner Calabrese, just to kind of set the order of operations here.
I just have a question about numbers. So you anticipate that this dispensary, for at least for the immediate future, will service about how many people in Fairfield County? Up 800 or something? Is that?
No, there are 800
Total in
patients
the state.
statewide licensed at this time. You know, everybody's guessing, and I know the department's guess is that 2% of the population is likely to need medical marijuana. So whatever 2% of the population in this area could be anticipated to need them.
No.
If it turns out that this is going to be a problem in terms of traffic flow, of servicing them, what the dispensary will do is set up a system by which you have to have an appointment before you
That
come
was
in.
my next question. Thank you.
Commissioner Calabrese.
Okay, can I just clarify just real quick with Diane?
I wish you would.
Okay.
If you need to, go ahead. I mean,
Well,
she's presenting, so I know it's your.
I understand, but,
Go ahead.
you know, this is
Yeah, go ahead.
this is
Go
a very
ahead. Go ahead.
important subject, but 2% of the population is something that could be over a very long period of time. There will not be 70,000 people in Connecticut coming to this place in Fairfield.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make that clear.
Okay,
Mr. Calabrese has a question.
thank you.
Oh.
I've got two things. One, I'm just wondering if besides, I know Colorado, and I believe Washington, are the only two that are currently legally retailing. There might be more that I'm unaware of. But what my question is, are there any states that are running dispensaries right now that have laws or regulations in place that are as strict or possibly more strict than Connecticut is proposing?
No. There are many other states, and I'm sorry, I need to ask Mr. Lipton again, 19?
19. And
Roughly 19 other states
And Washington, D.C.
and Washington, D.C. have made this legal. But,
street from the White House.
We don't yell things out.
but Connecticut's regulations are by far the strictest, and the intention, I mean, I happen to know the commissioner, and he has said he has every intention of keeping Connecticut the strictest regulated state, which gives everyone a certain amount of comfort too, given the Justice Department's memo about what they will enforce and what they won't.
Okay, thank you. And just the final comment I have is more of a clarification, because it's in here, where it says that the department is looking to award 3 to 5 dispensaries, but also reserves the right to award fewer or more, depending on what they feel is desirable.
Right. And it's you can see as you look through the application, and the application is so new, we haven't looked through it with great care yet, but it's going to be a pretty grueling application process. And right now, we don't have any idea how many people are likely to apply.
I have 2 questions, unless anybody else does. And one is really just going on what Commissioner Jacobs said a little bit. You said 3 to 5 for the state. I don't know where I heard 3, but say 3 to 5, whatever, and spread out amongst these counties that are priorities. It would seem to me, just you listed 5 counties and 3 to 5. There's likely to be one to, and if this is approved and you get your application and that's approved with the state, it would likely be, this would be the, at least for a while, the dispensary facility in Fairfield County. My concern is what traffic will be like, regardless of getting appointments. You had somebody here before, Dr. Major, that she has 590 people. I assume once these come out, I mean, and somebody said 2% of the population. I know it's not 70,000 people, but is this going to be the destination for everybody in Fairfield County, which eventually could be 2% of the population, to get that? I'm not sure. I have no idea whether we're equipped to handle that. We have major traffic problems. I mean, you also said, and again on numbers, not necessarily used, is the 1,200 facilities in Colorado, a bigger state than Connecticut, true, but it shows how this can grow. I'm just concerned about a lot of physicians getting a lot of patients on this program, and Fairfield being the destination spot to
Well-
make appointments or whatever, it's still cars on the street.
Don't let me mislead you about Colorado either. Colorado has also legalized recreational marijuana. So I'm sure that has a large impact on the number of dispensaries.
I just don't know, this is new ground, so I'm just asking questions.
And it's new ground for everybody.
You can ask that.
Certainly, they're not going to be 70,000 people right away, that's for sure. We don't know how many there will be, and I feel certain that when the numbers increase, there will be more dispensaries. But if it appears to be a problem from a traffic standpoint, we will set up, my clients will set up a system of appointments, so that you must have an appointment before you come, so they can regulate the flow of people. Also understand that when you get a prescription, it may be for a month or more, so you won't be there very often.
Mr. Cannelli.
So, just to follow up the chairman's question, so on the state level, they've approved a process in which they depend on localities approving the dispensaries. And if we were, for example, say to approve this, we could go a while as the only one, and there's no cap on the individual dispensaries at the state level, how many clients you can serve? There's no cap, there's nothing, there was no kind of guidelines, okay, if a local community decides it wants to offer, to take, go ahead and try that, to do this and approve it, there's no cap or anything, a single dispensary, it's very surprising. It would seem as though, when you're going to depend on localities to do it, you could have a range of localities that may say yes or no, and there isn't limits. Nothing in this. This is strictly up to your responsibility, I guess, as a medical provider, to cap how many clientele would you serve. That's it.
Yeah, I
Really?
guess it is, and also
Really?
I think the market will enter into it. I mean, when there are 5 dispensaries, I would imagine you will go to the one that is the closest to you, and it may not be this one in Fairfield. But to a certain extent, I think this is going to be self-regulating, and I'm guessing here, but I think it will be self-regulating to the extent that if there turns out to be a huge use, even a use as large as is anticipated, they will absolutely approve more dispensaries. But they would like to go very slowly and make sure that this whole system works. I mean, right now, we're talking about a whole procedure that the whole structure is on paper. I think they want to make very sure this is all working well, and then they will approve more of them.
I had Commissioner Parker, then Commissioner Alessi, and then Commissioner Jacobson, and then Commissioner Cannelli. You.
Thank you. In follow-up, you mentioned that people will be picking up a month's prescription. Are there any records on crimes against people who have just picked up their prescriptions?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And part of the careful regulation of this, and part of the reason for even legalizing it is to try and reduce the crime element in the street sale of marijuana, to make it so tight that you will eliminate that element.
Commissioner Alessi, you had a question too?
What was the 70,000 figure I heard?
If 2% of the population,
The 2% of the population is not a very real number. It's a number that's based on Colorado numbers, and it's probably a very inflated number to how many people will actually register in the state of Connecticut. It might be more like a 20 to 25,000 number over a 3 to 5 year period. As of now, there's 800 people registered, and there's no dispensaries open or cultivation centers to provide the product. The numbers will go up from 800, but 70,000, that's a number that's based on some out west states that have different medical conditions.
So
The medical conditions in Connecticut are very restrictive. The state of Colorado has different medical conditions that are more open to a larger population utilizing the medical marijuana.
More conditions are acceptable for
That's
the
correct.
license.
yes.
still going.
Sorry to jump in, I just trying to help.
That's okay.
So-
I think Diane might be tired, it's been
I mean,
a long day and long night for her.
At 20,000, we're still looking 3 to 5 dispensaries?
The commissioner, when the numbers do increase from everything we've been told, they will add more dispensaries. Right now, being that there's only 800 people registered, they only need 3 to 5 dispensaries to start with. As more and more patients get registered, the state knows that every day they're the ones who are issuing the registration cards. They will then on their website say, we are now taking more applications, as you see the application in front of you. So it is believed that 3 to 5 will be granted licenses to begin with, and we're hoping that we can do it in the town of Fairfield to help people.
And what are your plan of hours of operation and days right now?
The pharmacy, due to the state regulations, has to be open 35 hours a week with a pharmacist on site. So right now, we would anticipate working within the state regulations for the amount of hours.
So you're figuring weekends?
Probably Saturday
Maybe
as well.
Part of the day on Saturday.
And,
Yes.
and possibly part of one evening to make it convenient for people.
And the benefit of that property is most of the places or restaurants that are open at night, there's a lot of parking during the day, so it actually fits the property very well. And plenty of parking spaces. And it's just a nice, safe area for people to come who live in Fairfield. And yes, there will be people coming from surrounding towns as well. But it is, the majority, there are a lot of residents in the city of Fairfield, in the town of Fairfield, sorry, that will utilize their registration cards. So it's a convenient, safe location for them to come. And, sorry. Go ahead.
And I would just like to add that we've met with the Attorney General. The choices of people who are being allowed to apply in terms of the company and the pharmacist is being very, very severely regulated. And it's not just going to be open to anybody who wants to open a corner store. It's going to be highly regulated throughout the entire process. And I agreed to be part of this because I feel that it's something that we need, but I also think that whoever runs it has to be very, very careful. You're like, I'm on the planning commission. I hear people come to me with things all the time. We don't always ask, you know, what are you putting on the line for this? What we're really putting on the line is a lot. My colleagues and I feel this is a very good opportunity. We will never do anything. I will never do anything that breaks the law. I have too much at stake. And I am a past president of the Connecticut Pharmacists Association, and I would not be involved in this if I didn't feel there was a need for medical marijuana, but there's also a need
The lineup will go.
to do it correctly.
We have to go in order. We have some more questions, so we'll just try to motor through them if we
That's
could
fine.
and go in order. We have Commissioner Jacobson, Commissioner Kennelly, Commissioner Suter, and Commissioner Jacobs. All want to ask a question, so.
I just
And
have,
we really only need one person answering. If you can't answer it, Ms. Whitney, please call somebody else, but we don't need 3 answers to each question. I mean, you're welcome to do it, but.
if we were to approve this, would you accept as a condition that the appointments start immediately and it's not left to your, I mean, if we had said to you, yes, you can do this, but we want you to schedule appointments to cut down on traffic, would that be an acceptable condition to you?
I guess I would ask that you let us try it first without appointments, but if you think it's absolutely vital, yes.
Commissioner Kennelly?
Since Doug hasn't spoken, let Doug go first. He hasn't spoken.
Yeah, just some definitional questions. What is, quote, medical marijuana, unquote?
The cannabis plant that is used for medicinal purposes, not for recreational purposes.
But it's still cannabis. I mean,
Yes.
it's cannabis, by whatever name you call it, it's cannabis.
And there are a number of different strains. I'm by no means an expert in this, but there are a number of different strains that are better for different illnesses.
Okay, and you know that cannabis is a controlled substance on the federal U.S. Code?
Yes,
Schedule 1?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kennelly?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Trying to get back to this issue of very limited supplier and potentially uncapped or apparently uncapped demand. Because traffic is a problem, it can be an issue, and to be able to arrive at these facilities, to be able to visit this facility, you need a state license. So you have to apply to the state to get this.
Yes.
But you've also talked about this idea that the state's going to see how it works. What I'm concerned about is, and maybe you can allay those fears, is at one end will be the state regulator who signs off on the license, who wants to help every individual who may suffer from cancer, glaucoma, seizures. However, imagine for a moment that we approve this dispensary and the one that's on our agenda somewhere down the line. So now Fairfield, the town of Fairfield, has 2 dispensaries. Other towns are voting for moratoriums for a year not to look at the issue. Where is the connect in this regulatory scheme at the state level between the pressures on the local municipality and the pressures on the regulator to provide the license? My point being that I want to understand that relationship, because if the licensure for this is strictly, I have a qualifying condition, I'm entitled, I get that license to come, as opposed to we will help a certain number, we'll allow a certain number of licenses, regardless of how unfortunate the stories are to people who want them, and we're going to look at how it's the municipalities that are willing to accept this are doing with it. That's one thing. But if we have a disconnect, and I ask you to, I will be researching this ourselves, but I'm asking your opinion. Is there anything written into the law as you understand it, or one of your experts here talking about this, that ties the licensure process to the ability of the dispensaries to provide the service, so that we don't end up with 1 or 2 dispensaries in Fairfield if we were to think that the concept was willing to proceed with, but the state is happily giving out licenses while all towns around us aren't willing to do it. Is there a connection there? Is there anything controlling it? That's good. Yeah, just ask the question.
so let them
Go,
answer
just
it.
trying to understand. Go ahead.
I understand the question. I can give you what the commissioner has told us, which is, first of all, the first 3 to 5 licenses, dispensary licenses to be issued, part of the criteria for where they will be granted will be the number of licensed patients in that area. So, for instance, if there are 3 licensed patients in Litchfield, there's not going to be a dispensary there. If there's a whole bunch of them in Fairfield, Bridgeport, New Haven, Stamford, then there will be more dispensaries in this area. And then going forward, as there are more patients, there will be more dispensaries. But at this point, I mean, all we can do is trust that the commissioner has said that's what's going to happen. And as the need increases, the number of dispensaries will increase.
You done? You have a follow-up?
So there is no connection.
In other words, the commission wants that to occur, but it will be up to localities at this point under the current state plan to decide if they want to host dispensaries or allow dispensaries or not.
Well, that's the first step. I mean, you have to say yes, you grant.
Right, but I'm saying the state doesn't control whether other zoning commissions around the state will allow this, right?
No,
They don't.
No, they don't.
Okay.
Commissioner Parker, you have a question, and then we can hopefully get back to Attorney Wilton.
just-
Sorry, we missed Mr. Jacobs. No.
Sorry.
Mr. Jacobs and then Commissioner Parker. So many questions, it's hard to keep you on. Go ahead, Commissioner Jacobs, my apologies.
Thank you. It's quite all right. Since everyone seems to be focusing on traffic and volume, how long does it take to actually, from some time someone walks in to the time they leave, to dispense what they need? Is this a half-hour process, a 5-minute process?
I don't know that I can give you a very good answer on that, because included in, there will be a registration process, just getting into the building and turning in your prescription. And then there may be counseling as to which particular product is best for your condition, but Mr. Lipton obviously wants to add to that.
Let me just help a little. Obviously, this is new to the state with the whole registration process, and every patient who's going to come in will meet with the pharmacist before they get their product to leave. So a half an hour at the most should be in and out of the facility.
And once that initial time is done, repeat visits will be shorter?
They might be, but we're going to want every patient to see the pharmacist every time. You know, there is a process of seeing how you're doing with your other medications and everything else. So, again, but this is new in the state of Connecticut. It's different regulations than they have in other states. But this is the only state that has a pharmacist on site. In many other states, there's no medical professional on site when you're getting your medical marijuana. Connecticut is the first state to implement the rules of having a pharmacist.
So under this, you're looking at 2 cars per hour.
There's not going to be many cars. It's
2 cars per hour.
So
if
I mean, and yes, to your point, probably we will do it by appointments at the beginning, and have patients will be calling in to set up their appointments and set up appointment times. It's not a situation where people are just going to be showing up, pulling up, and saying, "Oh, I'm here." Probably there's going to be a lot of questions and answers and educating the people in Connecticut.
Thank you.
Okay.
I gotta let the other people go in order. I had a question, but I'm
Can
not gonna jump in.
Can I also
Another-
address Mr. Kennelly's thing earlier? They will not pick 2 dispensaries in the town of Fairfield. They will pick 1. They will not pick 2 next to each other in the same locality. But that was a question from earlier. I just wanted to jump back to that.
No, just go ahead.
Yeah.
Commissioner Parker and
Just
then Commissioner
2
Wagner.
quick questions. Why would you locate it in the site that you've chosen as opposed to close to a railroad station or more public transportation? And my second question would be, how does it really differ from dispensing opiates?
Well, opiates have a prescription also.
I know, and you can get them at a pharmacy.
Right. But opiates are not a class 1 drug. They are not as carefully controlled as marijuana is. I have to say, some people are guessing that eventually marijuana will be demoted and perhaps dispensed in the same way as opiates, but that's not the case now. It's much more strict now.
Mr. Wagner and then Mr. Calloway. Unless Commissioner Wagner, Parker's not done. Mr. Wagner, you're done, Commissioner Parker?
Yes,
Mr.
I am,
Wagner, and
thank
then
you.
Mr.
I
Calloway.
didn't.
So, thank you. One of the points in the application, and I think I saw this elsewhere in your materials, is that the assessment at state level is to assess the other products and services offered by this dispensary facility and the added value they provide to patients and caregivers. Are there any other products that are being offered?
The only other products will be marijuana in different forms.
Meaning, as you mentioned before, different strains?
Different strains, and it can be something to be smoked, it can be baked into a product, it can be in an oil. There are different forms that are used to treat different conditions. Interestingly, what it cannot be is in a liquid form or a candy form, I think for obvious reasons.
So you mentioned that there's going to be some counseling to determine like which product is best?
Yes.
Who is offering the advice on which product is best?
The pharmacist.
The pharmacist. How is the pharmacist making an assessment of? Well, first, are the products just the different strains, or is it between the smoked form and the
both?
Okay. How is the pharmacist making it?
The pharmacist.
On what basis is the pharmacist rendering advice as to which form is better for certain of these conditions?
The pharmacist has to have the patient's whole medical record and has to check that medical record before giving out a prescription. In some cases, the physician might specify a certain form. But even when they don't, the pharmacist has the whole patient's whole medical record and has to check that medical record before filling a prescription.
So
and the pharmacist will be somebody experienced in the various forms of marijuana and which, like maybe smoking is best for someone with glaucoma or something like that.
And that's based. Are there studies that provide for which form of marijuana is better for which different ailments?
Yes, there are, and also in some ailments, the patient is not able to take the product in a certain way. Like maybe if you have digestive problems, it can't be in a baked form.
Okay.
So you
and last question here: who's doing the baking? Where are those products? I mean, I
Good
guess
question.
I can understand.
You're thinking of Alice B. Toklas.
Say again?
I'm referring to Alice B. Toklas.
Yeah. So where
She
are
won't
they
be
coming?
there.
And are there
The-
labeling laws regarding those
Oh,
baked products?
there are, the other half of this is the grow facility, where the product is grown. And in the grow facility, they also manufacture the product in different forms.
So the producer that's being regulated by the state and licensed is going to be producing the various forms
Yes.
for delivery.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Calabrese.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. This is more of a technical question for you, and you might not be able to answer this one, but I'm sure somebody here can. It says that patients get their prescriptions from a qualified physician, and I'm wondering, I see the department says by a Connecticut licensed physician. So what I'm wondering is, what constitutes a physician? I mean, who could be writing these prescriptions? I know what a doctor is, but there's tons and tons of different types of doctors and, acupuncture and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering who exactly is going to be writing the prescriptions.
Just as the patients have to be specially licensed by the department, so do the physicians. So the physicians have to go through a special review by the Department of Consumer Protection. As of last Thursday, 94 physicians are licensed to be able to give out these prescriptions. But it's a good question. Your average doctor cannot, unless they go through this process.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions? I have one more, and then I want to let you get back to your position. Just something because it was just recently said, but I have to question again the traffic, even with what Commissioner was saying about somehow we got to 2 cars per hour. I just wanted to see if this math makes sense based on numbers that I heard tonight, because I'm all about traffic and safety and numbers and uses and zoning issues here. 2 cars per hour is 16 cars per day. That's 80 cars per week. That's about 320 cars per month. I realize people might get prescriptions for a while, but we talked about estimates of demand. Okay, it's not going to be 70,000. He said it might be 20 to 25,000. 3 per state. You're looking at maybe thousands of people, 7,000 or 8,000 using that facility. It seems to me like it's more like 400 cars a day. I'm not sure that a facility is going to be able to handle the demand numbers that we've heard tonight. That's my concern. And explain to me, I don't know, or just how we got to 2 cars per day when we were talking about 590 people on one doctor's 2 cars per hour.
But at the moment, all you know is that there are 800 registered patients in the whole state.
In the whole state. Okay.
And there will be 3 to 5 dispensaries. The guess is probably 5.
Right. And also, I also heard that eventually 2% of the population could qualify for this, for legitimate medical reasons.
That's nothing but a wild guess.
Okay.
They don't know. But they will, obviously the department will have the numbers, because unless you're registered with the department, you won't get the product.
Yeah, my zoning concern is that we don't know the numbers, and we've heard big numbers and small numbers, and we're not sure. That was my only question. Mr. Less, you had a question?
No. I'm just trying to add the numbers in, like you said.
You're trying to do the math?
The numbers aren't.
But we're guessing at numbers right now. They have assured us, the department wants this to work. So if the numbers start increasing dramatically, the number of dispensaries is going to increase.
So then just following on the logical math and the numbers issues then. If there are 800 registered patients in the state, and you've got a handful in Fairfield County, and you're going to be open 35 hours, and you got a pharmacist there full time, how does this work financially? Is the doctor going to be sitting there? He's going to see 4 or 5 people a day.
It's not a doctor; it's a pharmacist.
I'm sorry, the pharmacist. And is there a business plan that sort of puts these numbers of patients and pricing of prescriptions and and all of that in place?
Yes.
That wasn't supplied to us, was it?
No.
I see. Is it, is it possible for us to see a business plan? I mean, I would think that that would be something that we'd want to see. I mean, put it to you this way, if, to your point, Commissioner Barrett, if the business plan provides for 500 patients a week, that's one thing. If it's 500 a month, that's another. And, you know, the business plan might shed some light on the you know, intensity of use that the applicant envisions will be put in this facility. That's where I'm going with that.
Again, separate from a zoning issue.
Well, I think it's directly related to the zoning issue.
But the projections don't anticipate numbers of 70,000 people coming to this 1,600 square foot facility in Fairfield. The numbers are much, much smaller than that. And if they need to be furnished to you, I have them readily available for you. And you will see on them there's numbers like that they're not even thought of. Numbers are much, much smaller than that.
Okay, well, I think it would provide the data that would inform.
Actually, we haven't talked about this, and I have a problem with that.
No.
I mean, this is their confidential information, and they have a competitor who's asking for the same.
Well, no, hold on.
Go ahead, Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. The business plan is something that's required to be filed with the state for their license, is it not?
Right.
Okay, so that ostensibly is public information.
I don't think it's going to be, actually.
Okay, well, so what is the concern then? That from a competitive standpoint, that they're going to lose some competitive advantage?
Do you ask for a business plan for any other business?
Oh, we do, yeah. We ask for business information from applicants, sure. I mean, are we talking about profit and loss? That there's a concern that there's going to be public disclosure as to how much profit this center is going to make?
Well, isn't that the kind of thing you're asking?
Well, it certainly relates to numbers and costs of prescriptions and things like that, but I don't understand why there would be a sensitivity to revealing that kind of information.
Maybe there's not. It's not something we have talked about.
I have no issue sharing with you our projections of how many patients we see will be coming in, and they definitely fall within the space and that we've picked out.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem to me that if the business plan, thank you.
Yeah,
if the business plan is required to be provided, to the state.
It can be provided to staff.
Well, we'll talk about how it could be provided. It might be something we want to ask about. My concern may be different, whether you call it a business plan or whatever, Mr. Wyatt, is usually we get any application, and I know this is a compliance, but, one of the requirements in our special permit is that it will not cause undue. I'm hearing supply and demand numbers I can't jive. And usually you get a traffic expert in here to use IT, the trip generation thing. Are there any trip generation things for this type of facility? I sincerely doubt it. So that's why I think it's a good point that we may need to at least understand how many people are going to be using the facility.
Somebody's put a pencil to paper somewhere and tried to determine on a business level.
I have put pencil to paper.
I noticed at some point that there's funding here. You've made application to some, are you getting outside funding in order to, somebody's looked at this on a very hard business level to try to understand how many people are going to be coming and going to this place.
Commissioner Wagner, as I said to you, I have done all that work, so I have no problem sharing with you the numbers that we're expecting.
Very much.
Okay.
We'll request that to be part of the record, to be submitted to staff and for our review.
Because my attorney reviews it and has a chance to redact
certain
things,
but
they should be able to give you what we see as the patient numbers going forward for year 1, year 2, year 3, and we have all that.
Of course. And if there's some concern about some, we'll figure it out.
Just want to be sensitive to some of but as far as patient numbers and a percentage, if there's 2,000 people in Connecticut registered and there's 3 to 5 dispensaries, then you're getting a percentage of that, and there's a certain amount of patients who will be coming to this area.
Does the state regulate the price at which these prescriptions are provided?
They do not. It's a free market.
A free market?
They don't.
And the commissioner, asked and answered by the commissioner, they are not regulating the price.
Okay, you answered the question.
Again, out of our control. This is...
Give me a moment. I'm sure I'll have follow-up questions to that.
Do you have a question, Mr. Pennelly? No? Anyone else? Okay. Why don't we let the applicant proceed? If we have any follow-ups, we will. Then we have a lot of public here. I don't know what's going on with the air conditioning, but it's not the most comfortable room tonight. So we have a lot of people that are waiting. If we can get some of them to specifically,
I think there are a lot of people who have waited to speak, and I waited very patiently. And
We
I'd
got to
like
make sure, it doesn't matter whether they support you or not, we have to make sure
No,
our rules are your application. Now, I'll tell you, Commissioner Whitney, that we have 11 o'clock curfew.
I
We don't go
understand.
beyond that. We already requested new information. We're probably not closing this public hearing tonight.
Yeah, I mean, now is as good a time as any to make the request as well. You know, I don't know whether there's been a request for the Fairfield Police Department to give their perspective
Yeah.
on the public
Yeah.
safety impact of this facility and this location with respect to this application. And, you know,
Well-
I think that testimony would be
Yeah.
relevant.
Well, yeah, I don't even want you to answer that, because I was going to ask that.
Yeah,
Let me
me
just,
too.
let me state it differently. Well, not that you didn't state it correctly, Mr. Wagner, I just want to state it as a request, a specific request.
Sure.
You stated it fine, better than me almost always, but I was going to say the same thing. Miss Attorney Whitney said that she had spoken with Chief McNamara. I just wondered, do you have anything in the file?
Mr.
I
Whit-
flipped it.
Mr.
I on my own contacted Chief McNamara.
Okay.
And it's on record, and you could ask. I had a meeting, I went
Okay.
over the security plan as it pertained to, I also have a company that's setting up a production facility in West Haven that I got through zoning, and a very detailed security for that
A
facility.
production facility to supply dispensaries?
That's correct.
Okay.
So I'm not just doing this on the dispensaries. Well,
Okay.
I also have but I went through the full Fort Knox experience of my whole security plan. I shared it with them because I don't want to pose a safety risk for anyone in the town of Fairfield. I have no interest in being the person that people are pointing their fingers at, like, oh. So I did meet with them. I called them. I said, we should talk about this. Obviously, they have a lot of questions, so you can talk to them about that.
Well, I think that's what I think we need. I think we need, maybe you're going to request the same thing. I think we need the police department, some representative, whether it's Chief McNamara or somebody, to weigh in on this, at least with a written statement on the record,
No,
or to
I'd like
come
to-
here
I'd
and be
like
able
to
to ask
hear-
questions.
yeah.
What would you?
There's been issues of crime with these centers around the country, so I'd like to formally invite Chief McNamara here at our next
I'm good with that.
session and have us the chance to ask him questions.
He's a town official. He's deemed to be,
No,
whatever.
and he's aware of the
Yeah.
plans.
Yep.
So I think that's a great idea, Mr.
shared it with
Wagner,
him,
Mr.
so-
Alessi. So the next meeting will have Chief McNamara and a business plan / some sort of thing to be able to quantify the number of
We'll have
patients.
an opportunity to talk about that at that time as well, you know, so that's good.
If you're going to, obviously, you're going to leave the public hearing open, so I guess I would like to stop at this point and give the members of the public a chance to
That's fine.
speak.
I'll make sure you have a chance, yeah, we're not,
And
yeah, I
you'll
think
hear
that's a
from me
great
again.
idea.
Thank you. Sorry for the jumping back and forth.
No,
but-
that's okay. We were doing the same, and I apologize for
But
that.
I have obviously a lot that I can share with you with
Yeah.
questions, and I'm happy to talk about it with anyone who's got further questions, because everyone does. It's very new to the state of Connecticut, and I'm available for that.
Okay, so we'll open it to public. We're not closing the hearing, but I'll say, if any of the members of the public wish to be here, you don't have to get in line. You just raise your hands. You come up one by one, state your name, address, if you'll give that. You can speak for or against the application, or just ask a question.
Hello, my name is Steve O'Connell. I live at 36 Pope Street. I have 4 children going through Fairfield Public Schools. 2 graduated from college, 1 is in college, and 1 just started up at Ward. I want to say before, because I was talking with the gentleman back here and listening to all this, and I want to make sure I'm being respectful of the people here, you know, in terms of medical marijuana and its use. I know there's a need for it, but my concern is this town, and why the focus is having a dispensary here. And I may say things that are provocative. I know there's arguments on both sides, but I wrote some points down when I heard about this, and I'd like to proceed them. First of all, you know, marijuana is a gateway drug to more addictive and dangerous drugs, and I know there's arguments on both sides. Having this facility is only going to encourage more use and possible abuse, and it may open the door to some unsavory, illegal behavior. Again, with all respect to these people, but it's a human business, a human venture, and these things can happen. And slowly, over time, more dispensaries will emerge here and in surrounding towns. We're already suffering from illegal drug trafficking from Bridgeport. And I know this, I have firsthand experience, not myself, but I know about it. Both our high schools have a severe drug use problem, especially with marijuana. More relaxed attitudes will create less monitoring and supervision. What will slip through the cracks of these so-called extensive and expensive security measures? Again, we're human. You can do the best job anyone can do, but you can't count on human nature all the time. And who's going to monitor the illegal user that walks out the door with a couple of bags or a kilo? I don't bemoan the patient with real needs for medical marijuana. They may need that help. But I would encourage the state to work with hospitals, making them centers for dispensing federally illegal drugs. Let's send the message that we really would not prefer to have dispensaries in Fairfield where we have vulnerable high school and college students and the possibility for abuse. And what I thought about while I was sitting back there talking with the gentleman and listening to what's going on here, I just think that even though this is well-intentioned, I think we need more data. I always like to see best case and worst case scenario. What if the worst thing happened with this dispensary? What if the best thing happened? Data from the states that have tried this, Colorado, Washington, etc. I'm wary about it because I have kids in the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connell. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes.
Hello, my name is Angela, and I'm here tonight to briefly explain the purpose of medical marijuana.
What's your last name and where do you live, Angela?
My last name is Fiorini. I live in Monroe, Connecticut.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm here tonight to briefly explain the purpose of medical marijuana and the need for medical marijuana dispensaries, which are both legal. I have been battling cancer now for almost 7 years. The name of my cancer is B-cell follicular lymphoma. The name of my chemotherapy is Trenda. It's a very strong chemo with debilitating side effects, such as nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, muscle ache, bone ache, fatigue, extreme exhaustion. The only side effect I have been spared is I haven't lost my hair. Marijuana has a stigma attached to it. We all know that. However, medical marijuana is a legitimate medicine which can be prescribed only by a trained and licensed physician. Medical marijuana is like a miracle to me, and I'm sure to many others who are dealing and suffering from side effects of cancer, MS, Parkinson's, chronic pain, the list goes on and on. Imagine needing medical marijuana just so you are able to stop the nausea, stop the vomiting long enough to eat a meal and give your body the vitamins and nutrients it needs to continue the battle, to continue to battle your illness. Imagine this. What if it were your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your wife? Just as it would be unfair to prevent access to a pharmacy for a patient needing to fill a legitimate pill prescription, so it would also be unfair to deny access to a dispensary for a patient needing to fill a legitimate medical marijuana prescription. Fairfield has an intelligent and capable governing body and can provide a safe and effective place where I can get my medical marijuana prescription. I'm not asking that you open a drug clinic. I'm asking that I and many others be given access to a safe, professional, regulated, administered, and more conveniently located dispensary where we can have our medical prescriptions filled. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fiorini.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Don Vidoli. I am both a resident here in town and I am also a business owner here in town. and I do not use marijuana. I don't have a medical need or anything else. But this is a topic that I've watched across the nation, as I'm sure many of you have read about California and the various states. And interestingly enough, the number of states is increasing for medical use. And I was the other gentleman that was having a discussion with the first fellow, and we had a good discussion, and he had some strong views on it. And his suggestion was hospitals. Well, I guess that one of the answers to that is it better to have a hospital with hundreds of people running around trying to control this, or is it better to have a single facility where its sole purpose? Because there are a lot of controls in place. And I understand his concerns and his fears, but if it comes out, if you've got all these people running around in a hospital, you do not have the same controls. Things do disappear from hospitals. It's a lot tighter control when you have a single distribution point. I think the state has spent a tremendous amount of time studying this. They did not study it lightly. I've been reading in the newspapers, as I'm sure some of you have, the gyrations that they went through. This is the tightest standard out of all the states so far that have done this. And I think that there is a genuine need for many of these people in this room, and I would hate to see it be denied. I have no personal objections to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. We'll go with him, and then you, sir, will be next.
Hi, my name is Tom Connolly, and I'm a former Navy attack pilot from Vietnam. I didn't get disabled in Vietnam. I got disabled on the Merritt Parkway. So, after my disability from a car accident, I've been on the oxycodone routine. I don't want to get involved with it. Where do you get marijuana? Go down to Sanford and Vine by the CVS over here in Bridgeport. There's no problem. It's 200 an ounce. Yeah, 200. So it's available. It's black market, and you have an opportunity to be involved in a controlled medical program paid for by the patients with no burden on the state. The state will tax, will administer, and will regulate a product that has a need in society. The current approach of incarcerating people and throwing tickets around over the thought that children in high school will be protected, you better reevaluate your educational system. Your children are protected by their parents and by personal responsibility, not by allocating a law to the government to supersede your responsibility. So with this opportunity, the states embrace the program, the doctors are administering it, and it is being funded by the patients. And only through good regulation and government work such as you gentlemen are doing now can we solve this problem. How big is the market? I hope there isn't any. However, it's going to be unfortunate that it's probably larger, but it's self-funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. Anyone else wish to be heard tonight? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Lionel Ketchian. I'm a resident of Fairfield, been here for 43 years, love this town. I got 3 children that I raised in this town, and you might have heard of me. I started the Happiness Club. We have quite a number of happiness clubs in Connecticut, have over 100 of them around the world. In 1999, I started a class at Sacred Heart, and I taught happiness. I've had a newspaper article, a column in the Fairfield Citizen News for the past 11 years, starting in year 2000 on the Be Happy Zone. And I have a TV show on cable that runs every Monday. So my point is, I think happiness is extremely important for people. It's part of our Constitution. Part of happiness integrates with freedom, and freedom is really comprised of choice. The reason I'm here to speak tonight is because I think people deserve a choice to stop suffering. And for me, as a businessman actually, when I found out how wonderful the choice to be happy was, I actually dedicated the rest of my life, don't make any money, doing happiness. I spread it all over the place. Yesterday I spoke at Barnes & Noble in Milford. I run the Bridge House. It's a mental health outpatient facility for 8 years. I donate my time to help people deal with their pain and the decisions they have to make in life. So that ultimately, the real freedom we have is the freedom to choose what is good for us, what not only propels us towards pleasure, but eliminates suffering. And I really, really feel that to deny people a chance to make the choice for themselves to eliminate suffering is probably not the best option. It isn't one I can make. And I'll even mention, because I'd like to really specifically zero in on cancer. We heard from one cancer patient today. About 10 years ago, I was on PBS with Dr. Bernie Siegel. We did Health and Happiness together. And it gave me an opportunity to see that the way we look at life, the decisions we make, the choices we make, really can help our health. Sometimes we're so debilitated that the only thing that can help us are things that might be out of our control, out of our choice. I think it's only proper that we allow what people need to run a healthy life and not deny them something that I think is a basic right, the right to lead a life of well-being and the best health you can, and to eliminate pain and suffering as much as possible. So that's why I'm here tonight, and I really want us to take a look at not voting for this, but not taking away the right that people have. I think it's coming, and I hope we see the value of it, and that's what I wanted to make a point of. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Capchi. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir. Go ahead, ma'am. Okay.
Hi, my name is Lynn Prowett. I live at 47 Twin Brooks Lane. I have 3 kids in middle school and 1 in high school, and I'm sorry, I beat you out, but I gotta go home. This has been a long night.
Yeah, I understand.
I have known David Lipton for 10 years. I have absolute confidence in his plan. I have looked at the security plan. I've learned a lot about medical marijuana through his initiatives. I have 0 concerns about this being down the road from me. And that's all I really want to say.
Thank you, Ms. Powell.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Graceffa from York Road in Fairfield, Connecticut. Conceptually, I have no issue with the opening of a medical marijuana dispensary, but I want to commend the commissioners in actually studying the traffic effects on this particular location. In fact, I'm in favor of opening one nearby. I have nothing against conceptually. But because that it's going to be a regional store, and that's the emphasis, it's a regional store, it's a Fairfield County and or a slightly larger than Fairfield County store, there will be all automobile traffic from out of state coming off the interstate into downtown or into that zone. So that's what I would like, as the comments were from earlier, some additional study on that, and whether or not, I'm not sure, you asked the question earlier, Sally, about if there may be a more appropriate location in town, in Fairfield, for it. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graceffa. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Carol Giacovelli. I know nobody's going to get out of here without a diagnosis someday. I know that. It's just impossible. But I also feel, and I've been looking all around since I got my letter that suggested this might be put right around the corner from my house. I live on Longview Avenue in Fairfield, been here for 41 years, and I love my neighborhood. I'm from New York City Island, and love the fact I could hop on a bus, I could do whatever. I love my location. And everybody in my area, we try to keep it up nice. It's like the armpit of Fairfield, but it doesn't matter. We love it there. And I think I'm here representing my area. I'm so surprised that I'm the only one from Grassmere. And I know it's necessary. I'm happy, and I know that one day there will be these facilities all over. But I also feel that when I saw the urgent care unit today over by People's Bank on Post Road, I do believe it should be more separated. I have a 12-year-old granddaughter. They walk my granddog all around Grassmere. Years ago, I had a beauty shop in City Island for 12 years. Now I worked on Black Rock Turnpike for 38 years. And I have a little business I call Here I Go. I work with handicapped people, our clients who can't come out anymore. I go to their homes and I take care of them. So I know about handicaps and I know how bad pain can be. But I also know I want to send my 12-year-old granddaughter out with the dog and walk around Grassmere. And years ago when I had my beauty shop in City Island, it was all about, now I'm going to forget, the stepping stone from drugs when the state, methadone, thank you. And I was all for that. My beauty shop was 2 blocks from the methadone center, and we had a lot of problems. I was at meetings for that, and I was all for it. And there were a lot of problems. So I'm not going to go into any of that. I just want to say, I wish and I've never done this, not in my backyard. But my backyard is right there, and when you talk about it being in Washington...
Yeah, I should have told you, I somehow lost my notes, Mr. Jackman. You need to address your questions to the commission,
I'm
not to the
sorry.
general public, because they'll think they can respond to you, and that's, again, not the way we operate.
I
You're just the
understand.
commission.
Okay.
I promise.
I get a platform and I get carried away. I'm sorry.
It's
like being behind a
I applaud
chair,
every
you
member of
know?
the public for getting up and speaking before us, waiting through
I'm
this all
sorry.
night. We don't ask questions of the public unless there's something completely we don't understand, so feel free, just please address your questions to us.
Okay, I'm really done. You got the whole picture, I think.
You have some
And
concerns about your neighborhood.
I certainly do. And just because I've lived it and I've been there and done it.
Thank you, Ms. Giacomelli. This gentleman over here, and, not really. No, I'm sorry, I mean, our normal process, I mean, you have a time and later at rebuttal to do that. Really, we open this up to public comment, so we really need to just let the public speak. We really don't go back and forth, I promise you'll get a chance, because we're not going to close the hearing without you making another comment. So, you
My name
can
is
even do it
Paul.
tonight if you want, when they're done. Yes?
My name is Paul Schwartz. I'm a physician. I live in Weston, Connecticut, practice in Norwalk, Connecticut. I don't think there's too much controversy about the utilization of medical marijuana for patients who need it. As I understand the law, there are 12 or 13 conditions that the state has given approval for which medical marijuana can be used. And I doubt if anyone would be interested in withholding that medication from the appropriate patients. I understand the concern that people may have about the location of a medical marijuana dispensary and the thought that, that this may be utilized for purposes other than what it was intended for. But the state has made very strict regulations on the control of the medication, who receives the medication, how it's dispensed, and how it's controlled. So the idea that this might escape into the community is really, I think, a misconception. Comparing it to methadone, the patients who are getting this medication are not previous addicts who are trying to get off other addicting medications. They're patients with specific medical needs who really could use the medication. And the reason for having it in this area, I think, I don't know exactly why this area was chosen, but certainly there are a number of patients in Fairfield County who would be utilizing this medication and who would benefit from it. And from a medical point of view, there is a literature that has been, increasing on the appropriate use of medical marijuana and the usefulness of this. So I really feel that it would be a service to the community and to the area if people can come to a area that is safe to receive their medications, have it dispensed legally, and hopefully will benefit from it medically.
Thank you. Really? You have to ask the doctor a question? I mean, he can't, yeah, I mean, the public comes in, and I'd rather not ask the public, unless there's something you didn't understand.
No.
I want people to feel free to come up and speak and not think you're going to be grilled by a commissioner or something, so. Anybody else wish to be heard? Okay. Nobody else? Attorney Whitney, you can present anything. Again, we're going to keep the public hearing open. You can rebut anything you might have heard tonight, but the purpose of that will be to get the additional info. Two things we explicitly asked for were the business. Yeah, you can too, yeah. Okay, then I'll finish. Yeah, why don't you finish, and then we'll go back to Ms. Whitney.
My name is Jennifer Jennings, and I live on Holland Hill Road, right on near the corner of Crestwood and, Grasmere and Holland Hill. So I've been a yoga teacher for a couple of years now. I've been in the yoga business for 8 years, and I've just seen lots of people who have cancer. I've taught many people who are currently in treatment, and I'm all for it, and I live close to this neighborhood as well. So just putting that out there.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Anybody else from the public before we go back? Because I really want to give Attorney Whitney some time to speak. I said we're keeping open to get more information about the business plan / counts of patients, expected counts of patients, and the report from the police department, and anything else. I mean, the applicant is free to present anything else also. So. She can have additional materials, and after she does that, we'll allow the public to comment on the additional materials as well. So, go ahead, Ms.
I just wanted to clarify what
Sure.
Ms. Giacobelli said. We wrote letters. The planning department sent out notices of the public hearing to everybody who owns property within 200 feet.
Mm-hmm.
We also sent letters explaining what the business was and reiterating that the public hearing was tonight. And I forgot to mention that before, and I just wanted to make that plain to you. And she has her letter right there. I believe, did I send a copy of the letter to you? I'm sorry, I will do that.
So you notice the neighbors within a certain radius?
I'd like to understand how many people were provided written notice, and that'd be very helpful.
Okay, the addresses are the same as the people who got the legal notice. But I will email Mr. Wendt a copy of the letter that we sent out. I guess I would also ask if the planning department received any letters about the application.
Yeah, I should have said that, and I apologize. That's my fault, Ms. Whitney. We received several letters. Unfortunately, I neglected I read them all, but I didn't write down all their names or print them all. So I promise at the next meeting I'll read all the letters. I believe every letter we received was in favor, as far as my recollection. We received several. My estimate would be maybe 5 to 10, maybe in that range. And I promise to, and I really apologize on derelict there. I need to recognize anybody that writes us again. We read all that. We read everything that we get. So
do you copy them and?
They're part of the record, yeah. But we don't. That's the problem. Is we're very electronic. We have a group email. It gets distributed to all the commissioners, so we get all this electronically, so they don't always put it, waste the paper. But
and you may have heard in the last application that Commissioner Barrett's read. Sorry. You may have heard in the last application that Commissioner Barrett's read into the record the names of the people who submitted the letters.
Right.
So we'll just do that next time.
I will do that. My fault. I
guess
apologize.
my last question is, when is next time? When would you like to see us again?
Yep, just schedule that with the staff. Because they schedule all the other things.
Pardon me?
2 weeks.
Okay, great.
And it may be quick. We got some additional information, And so I'm not going to close the hearing. People understand what that is. If they need to speak on what you present next time, it'll be on September 24th. And
Thank
I
you very
really hope
much.
we close it at that time.
Okay, me too, thank you.
Okay. Well, there's no further comment tonight. I promise everybody will get a chance. I thank the public for your patience through this hot night and the long night. Everybody sitting here and, really, representing themselves so well. Thank you. With no further business, we will adjourn.
So